106 miles to Chicago. We got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it.
Really have to see to believe. A cow on the loose running through a northwest suburban neighborhood. This was what people in Niles saw this morning. That cow moving at a good clip and avoiding the lasso until the real pros stepped in. Wow, pros is right. And with that, we can report that the cow is now in custody. CBS 2's Jackie Kostek has this amusing tale of what was a senior prank gone utterly wrong.
Niles Police says this was all part of a senior prank from students at North by Northridge Prep. They say the students were planning to bring live animals to school this morning, and the cow got loose in the neighborhood. It took several hours to wrangle the cow. It was seen running down the street, but finally it has been caught. From a cow running full speed down a neighborhood street to the tense moment the cow was safely corralled and led back onto a trailer, this was the kind of morning that brings the whole neighborhood out.
Weird.
Yeah, weird.
And I've seen squirrels and opossums and deer, but this is for sure the closest I've seen a cow, probably within 25 miles of here.
All the aftermath of what Niles Police confirmed was a senior prank gone wrong. They say just before 3 a.m., Niles Police were sent to the 8300 block of Ballard on a report of suspicious subjects in the area. Confirmed later as students from nearby Northridge Prep trying to pull off a senior prank involving live animals. The cow got loose and squarely in the middle of the morning rush was seen on a tear-down Gray Street.
I looked and thought, is that a cow running down the street? So I literally closed my eyes and opened them again and said, yeah, that's a cow.
Roger Plummer had just gotten home from an overnight shift at WBBM radio when he saw the whole thing play out.
About 5 seconds after that, I saw a bunch of young men in pursuit running and some of them driving. So like a goof, I yelled out, why is a cow running down the street? And one of the guys driving had his window down. He screeched and said, sorry, sir, sometimes things like this happen. And then he drove away.
It might have been the mess they created, but the students themselves not a part of the cleanup. Niles Police, along with someone from Wagner Farms, able to corral that cow just after 9 a.m. And after all of this, the good news is that no injuries were reported and the cow was safely taken back onto a trailer. Jackie Kostek, CBS 2 News.
Wow, what a morning.
Yeah.
Well, that's the important kind of news we break here at Chicago Corner for you. We were utterly amazed that that story broke earlier today, but we felt it was really, really important to share with you all as an important breaking news story at the top end of the show here. So welcome to another Friday night edition of Chicago Corner. I'm your host, Jerry Vasilatos, and joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host, Mr. Ed Heller.
Happy Friday, everybody.
Happy Friday to you. Yeah, I didn't put that in the show notes because I wanted to surprise people because I thought it was pretty funny. And I knew you'd get a kick out of it, Ed, given that's the kind of story you like to report on.
Yeah, I caught it earlier today, and I was like, he's gonna get. If I bring it up to Jerry, then he's gonna go, well, Pegleg's gonna want to take over the show, and I'm like, okay, maybe I'll just let Jerry decide if he wants to run with this one.
You know, I hadn't even thought of that, but you do bring up a really good point. So, maybe it was better that you didn't bring it up, so we didn't have that conversation. We could just let it pass. But yeah, I'm sure Pegleg might pop up later in the show to offer some kind of an opinion on it.
Yeah, it's like, anytime a cow is involved, he gets stirred up for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah. So
and really quick, I'm sorry to hear, Big Mr. Firebird, that the audio for our show isn't working for you in the UK. I'm wondering if they hate us over there.
I haven't even had a chance to look at the comments yet.
It sounds like it's working for everyone else, though.
Okay.
So I think must be a small technical glitch with YouTube UK.
Yeah. I don't know if he's hearing us now, or if maybe it was the news story that got blocked because of the copyright lords over at YouTube.
Well, I think he was sticking around until I got the working audio feed working. So,
okay.
Miguel says it's fine.
Okay. Welcome everybody. It's been I don't know. It's been kind of a slower news week, which is good because that means a slower news week's not going to get us too riled up. I want to apologize also. We had announced earlier this week that we were going to have an interview with Aviance Cobb in regards to her Holy Breath podcast and the Holy Breath conglomerate website that's involved in social justice and civic action here in Chicago. Unfortunately, due to a scheduling conflict, that won't happen tonight. Hopefully we'll do that next Friday. There's just a lot of stuff going on. She was tied up with some things, and we just had kind of a communications not even a miscommunication. It was just a communication hold up as far as like being able to get information in time for the show. So I'm looking forward to having her on in the future to talk about that. But we did tease it on Tuesday, so I didn't want to. I would be remiss not to mention it, and also give a shout out to her and her efforts there, in the hopes we can talk about it next week, probably Friday after we connect with stuff. So let's go into our first story, because this has been a subject on social media, a subject of a lot of criticism on social media. I've seen in the past week, basically intimating that Brandon Johnson, as usual, doesn't have a plan. And now he has a plan. It's just he'll present it within his time frame, ladies and gentlemen. So he did announce on Twitter that he has put his interim transition team in place. From Mayor-elect Brandon Johnson, meet my transition committee and subcommittee co-chairs. I've long said, in order to build a better, stronger, safer Chicago, we need everyone who can help at the table. That's what's reflected in these appointments. And he did post a link. Sorry, I have the wrong link up on this side. Sorry, I opened a YouTube link on this side and it started to draw me out. So, but you know what? Speaking of YouTube links, let's go to that video that I know that Ed has queued up from WGN News that goes in a little bit more detail before I go into the article in more depth. Whoop. Did I click it before you?
Let's get that back up on the screen and I'll start over.
Okay.
Let's take a turn this evening as Mayor-elect Brandon Johnson prepares for his first day on May 15th. The first order of business is choosing an interim Chicago Police Superintendent.
Also today, Johnson released his choices for his transition team. It's a who's who of progressive leaders, and there are some surprises. Our political reporter, Marianne Ahern, joining us now with the very latest. Marianne.
Good evening. There's names you would expect, but there are also those on the list, especially on the Public Safety Committee, that many did not see coming.
It's a very diverse group of individuals. All sectors and industries are represented.
Zeroing in on the city's top issue of crime, Mayor-elect Brandon Johnson's transition committee includes two names with CPD experience. Brendan Denahan recently left as chief of detectives, and Robert Boyk oversaw the reform office but was fired by former police superintendent David Brown.
There are so many people who ultimately share the same hopes and dreams that I expressed throughout this journey. And they have repeatedly said, or they've asked, how can we help?
State Senator Robert Peters, who led the effort on bail reform, is also on the public safety transition team.
It's all hands on deck. Everybody needs to be involved. Everybody needs to do their job.
With interim Superintendent Eric Carter leaving May 15th, Johnson's swearing-in day, the mayor-elect will soon select a new interim until the nationwide search is over. Former top cop Eddie Johnson is not ruled out as an interim choice.
The people of Chicago are going to be very comfortable. And just as important, the rank and file members will know that the fifth floor has their back.
Also today, riding the CTA to his final Cook County board meeting,
Photo op.
Johnson's fellow commissioners and board president Tony Preckwinkle offered their congratulations.
For the last 12 years, last two mayors, I tried hard to work with them. I will tell you honestly that collaboration was difficult.
So back to that interim superintendent, there is also a nationwide search underway for the top cop. The commission leading the search says so far only 7 have applied. They expect more to do so.
And getting a lot of input on those names too from the community.
Exactly, going all around town doing town halls.
Okay,
Yes.
Marianne Ahern.
Okay.
I'm getting the impression in the live chat. Whoops. That you were clicking it while I was clicking it.
Sorry,
I'll let you click it. You click it.
I was taking mine down and then it accidentally. Well, you know what happened.
I know what happens. We're both quick on the draw. That's what she said. I'm getting the impression that Arturo is as cynical or disappointed with the phrase progressive leaders as he also references future corrupted officials. But Art, let's make a distinction here, okay? What's the opposite of progressive? Regressive. Progressive is actually a good term, and it was actually a good label for those that wanted to direct policy away from the neoliberal Democrats ruling things until the neoliberal Democrats ruling things saw that it was a great branding, and they co-opted it. So unfortunately, it seems that progressive has been co-opted by the same group of Republican-light Democrats that kind of bastardized what that word means now. So I wouldn't dismiss progressive leaders as it comes to Chicago, because I do think there's a different brand of progressive politician in Chicago than on the national level. And I also discount Chuy Garcia from that, because Chuy, claims he's a progressive, but he's kind of been swallowed up by the Democratic neoliberal party in Washington as a congressperson.
Yeah, it feels like he hasn't been a real progressive in a very long time. It's mostly just rhetoric for him at this point.
Yeah. But progressive is a good word. And I'd like to see us recapture that branding from neoliberal Republican-like Democrats who've co-opted it and basically made it an ugly thing, because it's not actually reflective of what progressive values and what progressive equitable justice is all about, I think. And that's just my opinion. What do you think, Ed?
It's difficult when you start using labels like that. I like to lean more toward populist than progressive, because progressive could mean a lot of, like you said, it can be distorted and twisted, and it can mean a lot of things. You can make progress on bad things. That doesn't mean that's, that wouldn't be so-called progressive. But we could. That's a rabbit hole we don't need to go down down tonight.
And it was funny because I got into a little what do you want to call it? A little not firestorm, but a little debate on Twitter the other day with someone who made the same point. She called herself, I think, liberal girl or something, which kind of surprised me. I don't remember exactly what her handle was on Twitter, but she made the case that progressive policies moving forward are going to be bad for the city. And no, she didn't. Someone else did. And I basically presented that whole progressive versus regressive argument. And this girl with the handle that said liberal girl something or other said, can you really honestly say that liberal policies have been responsible for taking the city in a better direction? And I'm like, well, why are you using the word liberal instead of progressive? I thought we were talking about the progressive level. In fact, I'm going to see if I can, because that's
because the word liberal has also been distorted over the decades. So like the classical original version of it really did kind of mean progressive, but it doesn't anymore.
No, it doesn't anymore. No, well, it's been
not hasn't for us liberals very long time.
The brand
Oreo's progressive.
The branding liberal has been kind of bastardized, I think, and twisted into something that it isn't also by the right. So you've got the right that's bastardized what liberal means, and you've got the left, the neoliberal left, that's grabbed the branding of progressive and basically turned that into something I don't think it actually is.
Well, it's kind of like the ones who grabbed liberal and distorted it and made it a terrible thing are the ones that threw a lasso around progressive and drew it in. And so they're dragging them all down with us is what's happening. So I don't know what the hell term we're going to use going forward, but if we focus on the policies and focus on the things that we want to do and worry less about the labels, I think we'll all be better off.
Absolutely. Well stated. So I did find the Twitter thread before we go into Johnson's transition team. Since we're talking about it, it is, and we do have a new segment I'm going to say for the end of the show called like Twitter updates, Twitter Corner, where we find interesting tweets from the week. But since we're talking about the whole progressive liberal thing, I remember who it was I was responding to. The account that I'm constantly clashing with, the Chicago Contrarian. This is the account that was talking about Kim Fox and couldn't take the win. It was still complaining about her even after she said. So he wrote, she, I'm not sure who they are. There are some lessons to be learned from the 2023 mayoral election for Chicago to escape the grip of progressives. Chicago's conservative voters need to build a grassroots network. It is possible. And of course, they put up an editorial to which I responded, the opposite of progressive isn't conservative, it's regressive. Why not be honest that's what you're actually advocating for while maligning what progressive actually means, embracing progress and equity, not the shitty regressive policies favoring business and the elite? And to which that other Twitter handle responded, so I don't know why you would use the handle classic liberal girl and then respond like this.
Well, classical liberal. That's liberal. What it comes down to.
Read the tweet though. Let me read the tweet though first, because I think let's have the context.
All right.
Classical liberal girl. But do the progressive policies work? Liberal policies bring poor. She's claiming that she calls herself classical liberal girl, and she states liberal policies bring poor infrastructure, lousy schools, poverty, crime, debt, high taxation, stagnant property values, business flight, population flight. There is no definition where this is progress. To which I responded, those are the consequences of shit-lib, conservative, predatory privatization, crony capitalist policies. You're intentionally bastardizing the word progressive as being the same thing as liberal. It's not, although it's certainly been co-opted by shit-libs who saw the branding opportunity or branding value. Go ahead, Ed.
It also opens up the door for the definition of conservative, because there's a lot of things that you might consider actually conservative that people are calling progressive these days, like saving the environment. That's a conservative position.
Okay.
Clean air and clean water, that's conservation. That's
hear you.
conservative.
Yes, and that is the proper application of the phrase, although isn't it ironic that most conservatives would dismiss climate change and environmental issues because it gets in the way of privatization and big business interests, because of this whole mindset of the free market capitalist model that everybody's supposed to be free to make as much money as they want at the expense of the environment, harming our environment, which will lead to more problems down the way that will just cost more money and cause more crisis to our climate and to our planet.
And the other issue is with people who identify themselves as conservative, when the reality is that all they really want is no change. They are afraid of change, and so they're only conservative about keeping the status quo.
But I would say also, Ed, a lot of them, not only do they not want change, they want to roll things backwards to a place where they were comfortable and thought that things were simpler, so long as it just served their interests.
Right. So again, it's labels. We got to focus on the policies. We got to focus on, what do we want? How do we want to make it happen? How do we want to help everybody get to a good place?
So ironically, after I made my point about the branding value, classical liberal girl responded, "You cannot be serious that these are the result of conservative policies. There hasn't been a conservative politician in Chicago in over 100 years. Anyone with eyes can see the results of progressive policies in the places they have been enacted." To which I responded, "You can't be serious that any of the politicians here in Chicago or across the state are actual leftist liberals, even though they masquerade with D's behind their names. They've been Republican light neoliberal shitlibs from Daley to Lightfoot. It's a pro-privatization duopoly." And
they're not entirely wrong there. I mean, that's the difference, is that if you just say liberal and you're not saying neoliberal, and you're not referencing basically what happened in the late 70s, early 80s with the third way politics, which essentially turned basically capitalist Democrats into Republican light, and then essentially merged the parties into the duopoly that it is now. Then you're just playing around with labels.
Well, I hear what you're saying, but those that brand themselves as liberals today in the Democratic Party, in the more mainstream National Democratic Party, those that claim they're liberals, they're neoliberals. So yeah, I hear what you're saying, but it's like the neoliberals will not admit they're neoliberals. They're grabbing onto the phrase liberal, to which, yeah, I guess her point would be true, but that's not true liberalism. That's liberalism by neoliberals who claim they're liberals while they're actually serving big business interests.
Yeah, I see a lot of people, they go on the internet and all they want to do is argue over semantics, and I'm like, why don't you just talk about the actual things you want to happen and how you think people should be making those things happen?
You mean,
and worry less about the labels.
You mean the solutions?
Solutions, yes.
Well, it seems that Brandon Johnson's putting together a transition team to address solutions. And following up on what we opened with, sorry, before I went on that little tangent about branding and progressivism and liberalism, this comes from the website chicagoforthepeople.org. And this is the press release going into a little bit more detail in regards to Mayor-elect Johnson's transition team. Mayor-elect Brandon Johnson on Thursday announced the formation of the Chicago for the People Transition Committee and 11 subcommittees. I like the branding here, Chicago for the People. Yeah. Not all the privatization, not the charter schools, not everybody who thought they were going to get tax breaks and free rides if Palos Paul had won, but Chicago for the people. And we were talking about this too, Ed. Brandon Johnson, of course, he has to work with business. Of course, he has to bring more business into the city. But we didn't believe, nor do I believe, it's going to be at the expense of serving the average Chicagoan also. Now, jury's still out, hasn't been sworn in, and we hope we're right. Yeah. Otherwise, we'll be very vocal about that too.
We also have to keep in mind that because he was in a runoff election, he didn't have as much time to assemble his permanent team, which is why he has a transition team. So while you've got all the talking heads and all the nuts on social media going, oh, well, look, he's picked this person for this and this person for that, this is You know what the word transition means? It means he's working with what he can right now until he can actually get his full team in place here. So unfortunately and sadly, that means that it might take a little longer for him to get rolling on a few of his initiatives, but it'll be interesting to see what he can actually accomplish going forward in his first month or so in office.
And this committee is meant to advise on who the key players should be in making that transition successful for the solutions that we hope will be forthcoming. So as the article says, he announced the formation of the Chicago for the People Transition Committee and 11 subcommittees. The Transition Committee and subcommittees will be guided by leaders from Chicago's business. Okay. So what did we say? He's recognizing business, but as importantly, activist and government communities. Their work will culminate in a written report issued in the coming weeks to shape and guide the work of the new administration. Quote, I've long said that in order to build a better, stronger, safer Chicago, we need everyone who can help at the table, and that's what's reflected in these appointments, said Mayor-elect Brandon Johnson. This group of extraordinary leaders reflects the diversity and vibrancy of our city, et cetera, et cetera. That was in the, we saw that in the earlier video. The Transition Committee members, Kennedy Bartley from the People's Unity Platform, G2 Brown, Journey for Justice Alliance, Martin Cabrera, Cabrera Capital Markets, Jim Connolly, Chicago Laborers District Council, Brendan Denahan, former Chief of Detectives, as referenced in that Marianne Ahern report, Juan Gonzalez of Great Cities Institute, Reverend Dr. Marshall Hatch, Senior, New Mountain Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church, Michelle Morales of the Woods Fund Chicago, Diane Palmer, SEIU Local 73, Richard S. Price, Executive Chairman of Mesero, Delia Ramirez, U.S. Representative of Illinois' 3rd District, Dr. Barbara Ransby, John D. MacArthur University Chair and LAS Distinguished Professor, University of Illinois at Chicago, Charles Smith, CS Insurance Strategies, Margaret Stender, minority owner and founding CEO of the Chicago Sky, Emma Tai, United Working Families. And there's an image of those who are on this transition committee advising him. Economic Vitality and Equity Subcommittee co-chairs include Michael Fosnacht, Lynette McRae, Anton Seals. Immigration Subcommittee co-chairs, an important matter facing us in the face of a lot of the immigrants that have arrived. State Representative Lillian Jimenez, Jeannie Kastrup, Andrea Ortiz. Workers' Rights and Labor Subcommittee co-chairs, Shabataya Andrich, Reverend C.J. Hawking, Sophia Zaman. Public Safety Subcommittee co-chairs Dr. Catherine Bocanegra, Robert Boyk, State Senator Robert Peters, Tanya Watkins, and they also have images of the other committee members.
Can I just say, Jerry, that you're doing some amazing pronunciations tonight. I haven't had to correct you once yet.
Do you know, for the longest time since my last shoulder surgery, Ed, I had 2 Norcos left over, painkillers left over for emergency, right? I've had these Norcos for over a year and a half in case of emergency. And something happened pre-show that forced me to pop those 2 Norcos out of the bottle and take them. So I'm hoping that my much more measured, patient, slower approach to pronouncing things and guiding the show from the captain's chair might be the result might speak to the fact that they held their potency for a year and a half.
Okay, and let's just say that Jerry was instructed by his physician to take these because of the pain he was dealing with.
That's right.
He didn't do this on his own. He's not taking illegal drugs. They are prescription.
We're prescribed. They were prescribed to me for pain.
Yes.
The doctor didn't tell me. I mean, at the time,
you didn't say when.
Right.
You just said,
well,
okay. Well, when you're in pain.
Right. Well, at the time, it was to cover my shoulder pain. But since I had some, now keep in mind, Ed, I stopped taking them when my pain was gone because I wasn't addicted to them. But I'm like, well, I'm not going to throw these away because what if I have pain in the future, like in the neck? And that's what I ended up taking them for tonight. So hopefully that's helping with my slower, more measured approach to guiding the show and my pronunciations. Because this is a very informal we don't.
We're good.
We're good talking about personal stuff now.
You're not passing out on the live stream, so I think you're at a good level right now.
It was that or Jack and Cokes, and I've worked all week long successfully to cut sugar out of my diet. And
really? Oh, that's a shame.
No, it's not, because I want to.
Well, I guess it's good for you.
Yeah. So Jack and Cokes were not an option tonight. Thanks for drinking yours on camera to tempt me. Thanks, Ed. All right, so
I'm doing this for you, Jerry, because you can't.
I appreciate that. Appreciate that very much, Ed.
What an asshole.
All right, let's continue with Brendan Johnson's transition.
We left off at Housing Subcommittee co-chairs.
Correct. Julie Dworkin, Jonathan Jones, Cindy Sato. Education and Youth Subcommittee co-chairs, Jackson Potter, Jesse Ruiz, Jay Travis. Human Rights, Equity, and Inclusion Subcommittee co-chairs, a very, very important committee, I believe, subcommittee. Candace Coleman, Kim Hunt, Cook County Commissioner Anthony Quezada. All right, you caught me. Environmental Justice Subcommittee co-chairs, Juliana Pino, Colleen Smith.
Pino.
No, it could be Pino.
No, there's no tilde over the end. It's just Pino.
That's strike 2 for Jerry. Colleen Smith, Jung Yoon. There's an image of those subcommittee co-chairs. Arts and Culture Committee subcommittee co-chairs. Leslie Honoré. It's got that little accent on the back end.
I'd go with Leslie Honoré.
Leslie Honoré, and it rhymes. Abby Pucker, Monica Trinidad. Transportation Committee subcommittee co-chairs, State Representative Cam Buckner.
Yay, Cam.
I'm liking Cam. In the beginning, I was kind of on the fence about him, but he's a solid dude. I really have grown to become kind of fond of him and how he navigated his mayoral campaign and how he's made himself very available and very accessible in a way that doesn't speak to ego after the election.
Yeah, I really dig that about him. If you're not following him on Twitter, you should be, because he's on point almost every tweet.
Absolutely. I agree. I do follow him and I retweet some of his stuff as you do. Kirk Dillard, Roberto Roquejo, Health and Human Services Subcommittee co-chairs, Sean Garrett, Linda Ray Murray, MD, Alderman, and I know better, Alderman, it should be Alderperson, Rosanna Rodriguez Sanchez. And here's that committee.
Okay. And Kathy has issues with Dr. Murray.
I'm sure we're going to hear about them from her in the live chat. Quote, I'm honored to serve as and we'll get to that. Kathy, go ahead and share those comments. I'm honored to serve as a transition committee co-chair for Mayor-elect Johnson, and I look forward to helping build our agenda for Chicago that prioritizes social and economic justice, said Dr. Barbara Ransby. I've spent much of my adult life fighting for a fairer, safer, stronger Chicago, and I see in this moment an extraordinary opportunity to help realize a vision many of us have been fighting for across decades. I will do everything in my power to seize that moment to deliver as much as possible for people across Chicago, especially those who've been historically marginalized and ignored. I was with Mayor-elect Johnson from the very beginning because he and I share many of the same priorities, including policies to support working families and new Americans, advancing affordable housing in every community, and ensuring our children have access to fully funded neighborhood schools, said U.S. Representative Delia Ramirez. I look forward to helping usher in a new day in Chicago and work with the mayor-elect alongside these extraordinary leaders to shape the new administration. I'm proud to serve in the role of Transition Committee co-chair for Mayor-elect Johnson and look forward to working together to create a better economic future for all Chicagoans, said Charles Smith. Together, we can ensure that minority and women-owned businesses have the resources they need to succeed and provide economic opportunity in every community. That's great, but let's make sure that that doesn't suddenly start to tilt the scale only in that direction. For more information, visit chicagoforthepeople.org. So I think that this is extraordinary that we're seeing this kind of outreach, this kind of interest in creating so many subcommittees to making sure that everybody's interests are served. as Harold Washington said, this isn't about like who has a seat at the table. This is about everybody eats. It's not special interests. Everybody from business to labor to the average Chicagoan to kids in schools is going to be represented by all these subcommittees. And this is the kind of initiative that, you know, if they had the brains to have done so, may have won Rahm Emanuel or Lori Lightfoot some more supporters. But clearly, this is not the type of initiative that either of them cared about, gave a damn about, or Richie Daley before that. It's all politics, status quo bullshit as usual. And this is why we're happy and hopeful in regards to Brandon Johnson's service. So fingers crossed, we're going to see some good things from this.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Any thoughts from you on that, Ed? Oh,
I'm in agreement with you on that. I'm going to be optimistic as long as I possibly can until we see something that starts going awry. So far, I think we're still on track for fixing the city and doing better things. So for now, we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt. We still got, Lori's got what? Is it 16 days left? Something like that?
She's not granting any exit interviews.
17 days.
Did you see that on social media?
Yeah,
she's not doing any interviews with anybody, Ed.
Color me shocked, Jerry.
No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. You will stop speaking. You will stop speaking. You're full of crap. And that's the nicest thing that I can say.
Squeeze one more of these in now that she's on her way out.
What a fucking bitch, am I right?
But we're happy to have you hang around the city and just be friendly to everybody, and maybe your voice will return. I mean, I know it's like when she had decided when she had finally lost during the primary, and then she took all this time off and didn't do any press conferences. When she finally was dragged back in front of a camera, I swear her voice was so much less hoarse than
it was.
And it's like, and clearly that's what it is that she's just she was constantly yelling and being frustrated and lashing out to the point where her vocal cords just couldn't take it.
Yeah, that does explain it. You're right. I mean, I guess we've become used to it in her 4 years of service as mayor, that we just always remembered or assumed that's just her characteristic voice. But you made a very good point. When she was away, she didn't always sound that way. So we wish her well. We're very, very glad that Lori Lightfoot has the opportunity now to rest and heal her vocal cords and go somewhere else. So there's another video link in the private chat. Ed, maybe you do have it queued up. This relates to
I got it right.
Cool. Johnson being very embracing of what Chicagoans need. Let's run that video.
Brandon Johnson making the rounds today, introducing himself to the community and listening to people's concerns.
WGN's Jenna Barnes is in the newsroom with more on his grassroots efforts. Jenna?
Jackie and Ray, just a little more than 2 weeks to go until Johnson's inauguration. And today, among his many meetings, was a sit down with a group of high school students talking about safety.
Hopefully things will get better. Yeah, for real, man.
Introducing himself to constituents as he prepares for his new role, Mayor-elect Brandon Johnson crisscrossed the city from coffee on the south side to empanadas on the north side. He also met with some of Chicago's youngest residents.
I see lakes and ponds.
And took questions from students at Hyde Park High School.
This is your city. Listen, you hear me? Listen, this is your city. Don't let anybody make you believe and think that you can't go outside and enjoy the city. You'll never hear that from me.
Johnson addressing the criticism of the chaos groups of teens caused in the Loop earlier this month. 2 teens shot, more than a dozen arrests, beatings caught on video, and then there were scenes like this one, of people dancing on vehicles.
Sometimes adolescents, we're not always aware of the risk that we're taking. Now, this is not condoning some of our family members on top of buses. You can't be on.
That twerking kid is going to get famous someday.
Yeah.
I'm just predicting it.
Top of buses. No. We can't do that. And we can't harm other people.
The mayor-elect announced his transition team Thursday. Former Chicago Police Chief of Detectives Brendan Denahan is one part of that team. And on the Public Safety Subcommittee, Dr. Catherine Bocanegra, a professor at UIC's School of Social Work, Robert Boyd, the former head of CPD's Office of Constitutional Policing, and State Senator Robert Peters. Johnson telling the Hyde Park students it's the job of the city to protect its youth.
Also know that I'm not going to demonize you all either. I'm going to defend you to the day I die.
Johnson encouraged those students to make mature decisions, and he's asking for their help coming up with ideas for activities downtown and in other neighborhoods to make sure teens are engaging safely. Ray and Jackie.
All right, Jenna, thank you.
True or false?
False. Okay.
Can I tell you how that watching him engage the younger people?
Yeah.
It literally, I'm just like, where I've been so stressed out for the past couple of years that we've been covering stuff, I'm feeling some like sense of peace inside. And I really regret on my own behalf that I didn't pay more attention to him. And I was more distracted by another candidate who was a little bit more radical, that I'm like, yeah, we need a radical. We need someone who, opens their mouth and is a little bit more aggressive about things. But I was wrong. I mean, sometimes I start to think that in the face of polite discourse and diplomacy, that doesn't get us anywhere. It doesn't seem to have gotten us anywhere, at least on a national level. And I thought with how desperate things were here in Chicago, things needed to be shaken up a bit. But I'm really digging this guy's vibe. I'm digging his calm. I'm actually feeling like, wow, how lucky are we to have somebody who's this even keeled and measured. And to big Mr. Firebird's speculation, for Brandon's first Halloween outfit, you know what my guess is? It's going to be the mayor of the city of Chicago. That's what his Halloween is going to be.
Yeah, and here's a second guess would be
blues, Harold Washington, or blues musician. No,
that's a Cam Buckner thing.
Oh, that was Cam Buckner. I'm sorry. Got him mistaken. So it was Cam was singing, or he played an instrument. I forgot.
He actually sang. We played a clip of him at I forget which blues club he was at.
It was a while ago. It was a blues club clip. I remember now.
Yeah, but I should just say though, the candidates who didn't win, who were very activist like, they did serve a purpose. They did help to move the narrative toward the left and toward progress. And so even with them not winning, it helps Brandon Johnson try and move the city forward by having other people speaking of similar policies and similar directions of moving the city.
Definitely. Art mentions in the live chat what Brandon Johnson needs to do is ride along for some time with the Chicago Police Department and observe crime conditions in city neighborhoods. I don't disagree with you, Art. I think Art is a little bit more skeptical of Brandon Johnson. Not that I was ever skeptical of him, but I do sense some skepticism for Art, and I'm hoping, Art, that his leadership wins you over, and we actually see him deliver on all the hopes that we have for taking the city in a better direction, especially for the average Chicagoan and kids, especially in getting addressing the crime and bridging the gap with law enforcement, right? Trying to put whatever structures are in place to reform the police department, to serve the police department's needs with their own mental health issues. Right, and not escalate things by having more of a social work component in the police department. I was also thinking the other day, Ed, when we talk about, but as I wonder what qualifications are for police officers, there should be a social work component required on the part of any applicant to the Chicago Police Department. And I'm surprised that there hasn't been. I don't think that there is, since there was a move and they actually did follow through on assigning social workers to go out on non-emergency calls or to respond to specific calls that weren't, violence related. But it struck me as maybe that could help push for this reform and get rid of this unfortunate mentality in law enforcement culture that it's them against us or them against the community. And I'm not saying all cops are that way, but too many we see are. So, like, don't you think a social work component and helping that component would certainly, I think, foster empathy in a police officer candidate that I think could help these ideas of de-escalating and figuring out a way to that the department and the communities are not at odds with each other in the response issues that we see.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Art's right though. I mean, it's gonna take some collaboration before you can figure out what types of reforms and what types of changes are gonna work.
Yeah.
You're gonna need a social and de-escalation component that's better than the one they're using now, because clearly something else has to be done to make everyone be able to see what is going on with each other. Because you can't have a police force that treats all the citizens like the enemy. And then on the other side, we have generations that have seen that and are basically reacting to that in a similar way. So now we have a public that is treating the police as the enemy because that's all they've ever known.
And that's not to condone the bad behavior of criminals and violent offenders at all. But, not every perp or not every police call is a violent police. It's not all violent crime, and the over response to certain situations because of all the fear mongering about just the violent crime is, I think, what leads to a lot of these other unfortunate situations that we see unfold, because there's not a more measured, leveled response. And to big Mr. Fire's comment, I agree with Art. Walk a mile in others' shoes. He's right too, as far as we have to walk a mile in the shoes of the people in these communities that have been abandoned, as well as the police officers that might feel unfairly under fire, when it's not about dismissing the fact that their lives aren't important also, but that it's, again, law enforcement is a privilege. It's a public service. It's not a job you just get with benefits that means that you don't have to be accountable because you are more important than the people that you are tasked with serving and protecting.
Yeah, you almost feel like there needs to be a bunch of discussion circles. You know how people in certain types of rehab and recovery groups and stuff have these conversation circles where they talk about the things that are bothering them and they try to work out the problems. And it's almost like you kind of need to have a handful of CPD and a handful of people from the community and a handful of social workers and business people and everybody, and just have them try and work out the compromises and solutions, and just being able to understand each other. I imagine there are some community town halls where that's probably happening, or at least they're going to try and make that happen. I can see Brandon Johnson trying to do that.
Well, I think that's what these police district boards, what I forget what they call them, that they were just elected and voted in the last election.
Yeah, I forget what they named them.
Yeah, but that speaks
police
to that.
Advisory boards or whatever.
Yes, that speaks to that, along with the fact that Johnson has integrated all these subcommittees in his initiative to make sure he is appointing the right people that serve the needs of all of these committees and subcommittees that are advising him, to make sure nobody's left out or left behind. So let's transition into our next story, though, because I saw this ad and I just laughed my ass off when I saw this headline. Yeah, aldermen who supported Paul Vallis are basically trying to figure out, how they can come back with their tails between their legs, because as Alderwoman Rosanna Rodriguez Sanchez told Kathy Powers, I think many shows back, what was the phrase that Kathy shared? The party's over. That's what it is. The party's over for all of these older people who just feel they're going to get away with what they want to get away with by kissing the other mayor's ass and not being accountable in their own wards or getting away with things in their own wards. So, of course, we see Edward Dolia wannabe, Ray Lopez pictured here, and the Chicago Tribune reports. Do you have something you want to share? Or you just want my attention? Aldermen who supported Paul Vallis look to mend fences with Brandon Johnson, yet stay true to themselves.
Oh, you don't have the oatmeal one on here. Okay, that's okay.
Not on my side. That's on your side.
That's
yeah, isn't that kind of funny?
My side, your side. My side, your side.
It's not side. It's just a limited amount of slots we've got for our
Sorry, that was a sci-fi Farscape joke that nobody's going to get.
Yeah, I didn't get it. So what does that mean? Aldermen who supported Paul Vallis look to mend fences with Brandon Johnson, yet stay true to themselves. How are they? Let's translate this, Ed. How are they going to kiss his ass so they can continue to get away with what they're used to getting away with? That's what the headline should be. I think.
Mend fences.
Yeah. This comes to us by Hank Sanders at the Chicago Tribune.
I think it's like Anchorman, where he says, "Well, that escalated quickly."
Inside the Millennium Suite at the Hyatt Regency Hotel on April 4th, VIP supporters of Paul Vallis demanded their money back. Oh, no, I'm sorry. VIP supporters of Paul Vallis enjoyed specialty cocktails, a pianist, and sprawling views of Millennium Park as they waited for the election results to roll in. Among those in attendance were some members of Chicago City Council who endorsed Vallis and whose smiles faded as early returns favorable to Vallis dissipated and Cook County Commissioner Brandon Johnson was elected the city's next mayor. This is going to be Mayor Lightfoot 2.0, which is going to be twice as bad as what you just saw, Alderman Anthony Beal of the 9th vented to the Tribune shortly after Vallis conceded in a ballroom filled with teary-eyed supporters. The tax base is about to leave. The police are about to leave. So I'm very concerned about the direction that this city is headed. I'm sorry. Paul Vallis wouldn't have been Lightfoot 2.0. He would have been Rahm Emanuel 3.0.
Yeah.
3 inches taller.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. this whole analogy that they think Brandon Johnson is just going to be a foot soldier for the DNC like Lori Lightfoot was. I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, clearly he's going to stay friendly with the Democrats because he's a Democrat. But aside from that, he's going to do what he has to do. We'll see how the rest of the Dems feel about him after a few months.
Yeah. Now, here's the punchline to that paragraph about everybody leaving. I'm surprised he didn't mention the blood in the streets.
Yeah, Kathy's right here. This guy is falling.
So here's the punchline to that. Weeks later, Beal and his colleagues who backed Vallis find themselves in an unenviable position of having supported the loser in the mayor's race and forced to build a new relationship with Johnson, who some aldermen had described as too progressive, too inexperienced, or too lenient on crime. What makes people think he's lenient on crime when in one breath he says, no, we have to address crime, but in the other breath, we also have to address the root causes of crime, as he was referencing with what we saw in Millennium Park a couple weeks back. No, he's not going to condone what went down, but he's also not going to ignore things inherent in what could have caused, unfortunately, a lot of these youth to not have the proper guidance or support or opportunities, not in this specific moment, but for decades prior, right? Generationally. You ignore a problem and essentially the pot's going to boil over. And we're seeing out of control kids in the streets. They're not all out of control, though. You can't broad stroke all of them. While aldermen for years have had to work with a mayor they opposed in elections, the group of nearly 20 aldermen who will be part of the incoming city council supported a candidate on the opposing end of the original 9-candidate field than the one who won. The heated runoff between Johnson and Vallis, that Johnson won 52% to 48%, created a polarizing dynamic that also was felt within the council as aldermen picked alliances between the more conservative police union-backed Vallis and the progressive Johnson, who had come up as an organizer with the Chicago Teachers Union. And you know what? I'm also sick and tired of the word organizer being demonized. Why? You know why people demonize organizer, Ed? Actually, let's go a little bit down.
There's a number of reasons, but I would say Barry phone
Number
call
one
is
reason?
one of them.
What's that?
I would say Barry phone call is one of the more recent examples.
Barry phone call meaning Barack Obama.
Yes.
Okay. I've never heard that nickname.
Oh, sorry.
My number one reason is Barack Obama.
Yeah, quick context for those who don't understand why I'm calling him Barry phone call. What happened was Bernie Sanders in his second run for president was making some pretty good progress in getting the nomination before Barry made a phone call to all the other people other than Biden, telling them to drop out so that they could all coalesce around Melty Brain Joe. And that's how we got Joe Biden.
And that's how we're probably going to get Joe. Well, we're going to get Joe Biden running, but I cannot see him winning again with one foot in the grave. But yeah, let's get back on track, because organizer, which is an important function, I think that being an organizer shows an extraordinary amount of commitment and dedication to making things better. That's the mantle Obama claimed for himself. So as he abandoned what the roots of being an organizer was really about, serving those left behind, everybody who was, anti-Obama glommed on that. So because Obama was the organizer who didn't do enough or dropped the ball or who misled everybody, then everybody who calls himself an organizer is probably going to be the same way. And it just ain't so. Okay, you can't say because Brandon Johnson was an organizer, he's going to be Barack Obama 2.0. And by the way, I also want to thank Kathy for the correction. It wasn't Rosanna Rodriguez, it was Angela Clay. Angela Clay who shared that the party's over. So thanks for the correction, Kathy. I got so many marbles rolling around up here, I can't keep track of who said what sometimes as we're going over old shows and things we heard and things we shared. But so they're trying to paint Brandon Johnson before he even leaves the gate as a failure because he was an organizer, and being an organizer is actually a good thing, because look, didn't that lead to him embracing these transition committee and subcommittees? And yeah, organizers have an important function. Vallis's backers in the council will soon face a choice about how far they'll stretch themselves to work with the new mayor, or how hard they will dig in their heels to fight him. like someone pictured there. The results weren't what I hoped for on election night, but I think it's important to know, with the new mayor-elect, the campaigning is different than governing, said one of Vallis's backers, Alderperson Silvana Tabares of the 23rd. It's my hope that we can work together to address the issues that are facing the city. Yeah, because that's pretty much what it's all about, Alderperson Tabares. Our picture's going to load.
Yeah, it's just we've got all these candidates who were so hyperbolic during the campaigns that now they're realizing they have to start walking everything back because they know they're going to have to work with him.
Exactly. Or they're not, or he's gonna draw the line and say, sorry, it's not going to be all your way anymore. All right, so I don't know why the images aren't loading on this. I'm just going to take this down and continue reading them. We're seeing more ads than actual pictures of the committee, the alder people we're talking about. Going on in the article, even one of the council's most vocal members who backed Vallis, here's a surprise for you, Ed, Alderman Raymond Lopez of the 15th, said, while Johnson policies are left of left, as if that's a bad thing, definitely left of where I find myself politically, Lopez says he is cautiously optimistic about the incoming Johnson administration.
Okay, well, that's more than we expected him to be.
Well, I think that's more lip service right now. What else is he going to say? He's saving his ammunition for Council Wars 2, which I'm sure is
Yeah.
wrapping up soon. Still, the situation Johnson will face in the council remains unsettled. Even before the runoff, aldermen who supported Johnson and Vallis teamed up to reorganize their committee chairs and other rules. While the move was opposed by some, including Lopez, Beal, and other Vallis backer, Alderman David Moore of the 17th, that's Mr. Jean-Baptiste Point du Sable Lakeshore Drive, who likened it to a power grab. Supporters said it was a rare opportunity for the council to seize more independence after decades of mayors handpicking committee chairs and 4 years of strife under outgoing Mayor Lori Lightfoot. If Johnson moves to undo those changes, that could spark his first fight with aldermen, who would be reluctant to give up their authority. This isn't about their authority. It's about how they're supposed to represent the neighborhoods, not their authority or sense of importance and authority. To make way for the mayor's allies, Johnson's victory may help push the idea his progressive vision should guide the next era for Chicago, but his proposals from introducing new taxes or increasing existing ones to relying less on traditional policing were shot down by Vallis supporters in the council during the campaign. Just weeks before the election, Lopez also said he disliked the message Mayor-elect posted on Twitter in response to the chaos and criminal activity, here we go, that broke out earlier this month when hundreds of mostly young people took to the streets in the Loop on a weekend night when the weather was unseasonably warm. Police arrested 16 people as some blocked traffic, jumped on a CTA bus and attacked passersby. 2 teen boys were shot as they stood in the crowd. Quote, "It is unacceptable and has no place in our city," Johnson's tweet read. Yes, correct. It's not. However, it's not constructive to demonize youth who have otherwise been starved of opportunities in their own communities. That's what Lopez takes issue with. I ask, why? Why would you ignore that, Alderman Lopez? Why would you lump Johnson's response into just the second comment and ignore the first because you can basically spin it for political capital and suggest that Johnson's statement that there have been youth starved of opportunities in their own communities somehow condones what we saw downtown. He said, "I think that gave a lot of us pause, both politically as well as in the business community," Lopez, as well, specifically the business community is what Lopez is referencing. Because you cannot condone bad behavior, give any room for it to exist. He wasn't doing that. He wasn't giving it room to exist.
No, but he conflated it into that, and that's all that Lopez sees is that he's a very black and white kind of thing when it comes to material conditions and crime.
Yeah. Lopez hopes Johnson will lean on others to help craft messages that don't have unintended consequences. What are the unintended consequences? Again, this is look, man, I'm telling you, he sees himself as being the Ed Verdoliak in Council Wars 2. This is the guy we got to watch out for as Johnson moves forward. Where is it?
Yeah, because it seems to me that all Lopez wants to do is twist his words.
Yeah.
So while he says he's hoping that he'll be able to craft messages that don't have unintended consequences, Lopez is really hoping he won't.
And by the way, Ed, I did not intentionally not include
I know.
But the thing was, I hadn't uploaded it to this side yet. I just forgot. Actually, I prefer Lopez in the oatmeal-filled wheelbarrow because to me it doesn't look like oatmeal. It's just referencing the whole oatmeal analogy. Is what I just don't go off.
It's just because look, I know sometimes it's difficult to prepare oatmeal properly if you're not making the instant kind. But that watery mess that he posted to his social media quite a while back, it was embarrassing for anyone who cooks.
I love what Varun says here. Ray Lopez is Lindsey Graham with an accent, a cynical, messy bitch. I like that. Yeah,
I can
but
put
that's the
the
guy we got to
oatmeal
watch
one
out
in there.
Okay, yeah, you can upload it. We can remove the other one from now. I just don't want to always have to explain it's oatmeal in the wheelbarrow. Let's just let people assume it's something else.
Well, it's whatever it is.
It's whatever it is. Lopez hopes Johnson will lean on others to help craft messages that don't have unintended consequences, that meet Ray Lopez's high standards of communication. Quote, we know there are individuals who are looking for any excuse, any wiggle room, any sentiment that gives them the opportunity to act like depraved lunatics in this city, he continued, and we cannot have our leader giving them that opportunity. I'm sorry, Ray. I didn't realize that's what he was doing. In referencing another part of the puzzle, part of the equation. Moore was more supportive of Johnson's statement. The thing was not about not holding them accountable, but about not demonizing them, Moore said. That I stick with and agree with. Oh, wow. All right. Well, Moore actually said something valuable here. I can bring that browser back up. We can take Raylo down. Okay, so there's more. Mr. Jean-Baptiste Moindusab, Lakeshore Drive himself. As council members prepare for the new term, Lopez and a few of his colleagues are considering formally establishing what some familiar with the matter are calling a conservative caucus.
Council Wars 2.
Council Wars 2. To be made up of a block of aldermen, many Vallis backers that would meet to pursue behind closed doors in smoky cigar smoke rooms. To pursue common policy and political objectives, Lopez said he prefers the label the Common Sense Caucus. No, we're not going to let you spin it that way, Raylo. No, we know what it's about. It's about rolling things back or keeping the status quo, as Ed referenced earlier. As we are seeing the ethnic caucuses kind of splinter and not be as powerful as they used to be, we want to focus just on common sense policies and solutions to the problems of the city of Chicago, Lopez said. And you know what, Ed? In this matter, he does want to approach everything black and white. And there's no pun intended there either. He wants to approach things black and white, not just from a black and white perspective as you analyze right and wrong, but also I would suggest a racial undertone as well.
Jerry, I keep picturing the scene from Blazing Saddles where they say, "We've got to protect our phony baloney jobs, gentlemen," and then they all go, "Harumph, harumph, harumph, harumph." I didn't get a harumph out of that guy.
We got to get that clip to pop up when we talk about city council. He said that could include legislation Lopez is pushing that would increase fines and fees on parents if their children are found to be violating the municipal code. See what I mean by black and white? Without recognizing the gray in between.
Fines and fees.
Oh, Johnson also has some history on his side. He's been in politics for a number of years. First as a community organizer, and more recently as a Cook County commissioner, and has built relationships with some of the aldermen, which Moore said gives him hope. I consider him a friend, Moore said. I know his heart. That's first and foremost. Then why didn't you support him, Dave? And if a person has a good heart, that's the best way you can start, and you can get beyond the politics and all of that. If that's what you felt, why did you support Paul Vallis then? That's the disconnect. I don't understand. This is all lip service now because as the article started off, yeah, they're in a very awkward, uncomfortable position now. They got to backpedal. The tough
I have to wonder. Remember way back when they were talking about these different modifications to Lakeshore Drive that they wanted to do? And apparently they're still trying to do it. I wonder how much more is involved with all of that. And whether that maybe he had some understanding with Vallis, with whatever one he might have preferred with the going forward with the changes they wanted to make.
David Moore?
Yeah.
In relation to infrastructural changes to Lakeshore Drive, you mean?
Yeah.
How so? I mean, because most of the plans related to Lakeshore Drive have to do with the north side of the city, not how it continues past museum campus into the south side.
I don't remember the specifics exactly. I just remember there were like 5 different plan modifications where they were going to add tolls and do like VIP lanes and all this other stuff. And I don't know how involved Moore might have been with some of those plans, but if any of that had been connected with, some type of business opportunities, maybe Vallis and he had some type of understanding.
That
I
makes
can't
sense.
imagine. I mean, unless there was something more simple as to why he's supporting Vallis.
I would speculate, Ed, a lot of the endorsements that Palos Paul got from our black representatives on the South Side had everything to do with how they were going to aggrandize themselves personally with business deals. There's no delicate way to present that, because otherwise, why would you align yourself with a guy who's clearly not going to be engaged in what's the word, in reclaiming instead of abandoning those areas of the city the way I think Johnson will. We think Johnson will. Hope he will. With programs that aren't just about business opportunities and who's going to get the best contracts with the city that these alder people may have been affiliated with through their own personal connections. But yeah, I guess you got a point. Maybe, yeah, I think all those endorsements were related to status quo and business opportunities for themselves, not for their communities as much. But that's just my opinion. So who gives a shit what I think. The tough sledding might not be on Johnson's side either. A few of the aldermen who back Vallis represent wards that Johnson won, including receiving more than 78% of the vote in Beale's 9th ward and more than 80% of the vote in Moore's 17th ward. Quote, sometimes your children believe that not going to school is best for them, Moore explained in a metaphor for his constituents. You have to do what is best for your residents, and that's what I did in supporting Paul Vallis, not what was best for David Moore. You know what I call on that, Ed?
Bullshit.
That, and because my fingers were not as quick on the trigger as I would have hoped. Let me repeat what David Moore claims here. Sometimes your children believe that not going to school is best for them, Moore explained in a metaphor for his constituents. You have to do what is best for your residents, and that's what I did. And that's what I did in supporting Paul Vallis, not what was best for David Moore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was all about what was best for David Moore and his business interests. But, you know, and here's why I come down hard on David Moore, okay? Once again, I know I keep going to it, but the amount of time he spent dividing the city on renaming Lakeshore Drive and not focusing on the problems in his community, the food deserts, the priorities there had, unfortunately, I think, played more into this whole weaponization of identity politics that was unnecessary and did divide a lot of people. You know, I've had some people say, why are you against naming Lakeshore Drive after John Baptiste Point du Sable? I'm not against honoring John Baptiste Point du Sable. John Baptiste Point du Sable is honored across the city with many tributes amongst, you know, the riverfront museums and stuff.
There's a bridge named after him on Michigan Avenue, by the way.
Right.
Did you guys know that thing broke?
Yeah, we're going to talk about that later too. But Lakeshore Drive wasn't about identity. It's a drive going alongside the lake that everybody of every color, every race, every religious belief can enjoy. Why do you have to like make it about identity, renaming a drive that unites the city from north to south? That's what bugged me about it. I just thought it was a very cynical attempt to parlay identity politics into some kind of a win that there was no win to have there. Just leave. It's iconic. Plus, every time I hear the word Lakeshore Drive, my mind goes to the Eliana Haynes and Jeremiah song. That's what that street should be. And that's the song that you should play every time you drive along Lakeshore Drive. So anyway, I'm going off in the weeds here, but.
And not the version that Jerry doctored up with the name added in.
Yeah, that basically demonstrates the absurdity
fun.
of it. The absurdity of like changing it the way that he did. All right, so back to the article. Not what's best for David Moore. Johnson also will have some help on the council as some of his fellow progressives were elected as aldermen, including aldermen-elects such as Desmond Yancey of the 5th, William Hall of the 6th, Ron Mosley of the 21st, and Angela Clay of the 46th. Despite this added success, the Progressive Caucus and the mayor will still have to work with their more moderate colleagues, a relationship that will most likely take time to build. We have to give Mayor-elect Johnson a chance to handle what he's walking into, Vallis endorser Alderman Nicole Lee of the 11th said. Vallis endorser and Lori Lightfoot appointee, who formerly worked for United Airlines. It's a lot. This is no small task.
Yeah, Nicole Lee had cosigns up near her ward during the election. It was like Nicole Lee on one side and Vallis on the other. So she was all in for Vallis.
Yeah, she was. So I'm trying to bring up this other. Here we go. So speaking of Ray Lopez, as we move on from this story, this was reported by Bebo Chief Rat Czar over on Twitter, and Ed shared this with me. From this piece, Alderman Raymond Lopez and a few others are considering formally establishing the Conservative Caucus, aforementioned in this Tribune article, in Chicago City Council in opposition to the incoming administration. Raylo taking a classic playbook from his mentor, Ed Burke here. As council members prepare for the new term, Lopez and said a few of his colleagues are considering, this was in the Tribune article. Gregory Pratt commented, aldermen who supported Paul Vallis looked to mend fences with, that was the article we just read from. Okay. Just catching up here with the Twitter feed. It's a pro-cop caucus. Yeah, I would imagine that's probably really what it actually is. What city council members would join a caucus built around Raylo, Napolitano, and Gardner? Wonder if Bill Conway will cast his lot with conservatives or keep the I believe in root causes but charade up. Also a challenge. In a chummy council, Beal and Lopez are widely disliked personally by peers all over the ideological map. Raylo 29 doesn't just have the same sinister ring to it. Sounds like a beach bar in Santa Monica. Raylo forgets one must be smart to pull off something like this. I've actually been thinking Chicago would benefit from local parties for the municipal elections. It would make it much easier for voters to understand City Hall and the relationships between alders. Anyway, yeah, I just thought that it was interesting that this also came up on Twitter. So what's going on in the live chat?
What is going on in the live chat? Let me flip over to that tab and see who's talking.
Anything happening on Rockfin?
Welcome viewers on Rockfin. I don't see anybody in the live chat. We are streaming on Rockfin and YouTube and Twitter and probably LinkedIn. I think is it on your LinkedIn, Jerry?
You know, in an attempt to fix those audio problems, I got rid of my cookies, and I don't think we're on LinkedIn tonight. So the cookies got removed, and I'm also seeing, oh my God, we're not on Rockfin. I hit the go live button earlier. Oh no, we're not.
I hit it. Okay. I hit it a few seconds late, but I hit it. Okay. So
yeah, we're there. I just opened it and I see we're there. But there's no live chat there right now. So
okay, yeah, we're live there, and yeah, we're live on. I said we're live on Facebook. So if you're watching us on any of the non-tube platforms, welcome, and please let us know where you're watching from, and we will acknowledge your existence.
And of course, if you haven't already, please make sure to like and subscribe our channel, share it across your social media profiles. And if you have the wherewithal to do so, please support us at patreon.com/Chicago Corner. Special shout out to our existing Patreon supporters. That is who are comprised of Kathy Powers, Dr. Howard Ehrman, Shane Coughlin, Lou Kutramanis, and last but not least, Mr. Dominic Palello.
Well, I just had a thought. We could make a still shot of our Patreon supporters and just use it as an overlay sometimes.
You mean a still shot, get profile pictures of them?
Just the names.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Bring them up on the screen.
We could do that. Or I could also really quickly interject this here before we continue. I think I have it separately. I hope I do. I thought I did. I guess I don't. The Patreon shout out that we run at the top of the show. It's actually integrated with with our intro. That's okay. I'll separate it and put it there later for future use.
Oh, I'm glad Jimmy's watching us now, because we got a story coming up that you had mentioned to us.
Yes,
and we're kind of following up on.
And Warren, yeah. So let's save that for later without giving it away. Ed, can you give me a moment? I've got to break away for a moment. Stand by, everybody. Thanks. You know what, Ed? I wish I had Norcos more often. It puts me in a real nice vibe doing the show. But
yeah, I'm enjoying the show. I think it's got a good mellow. It's a nice Friday evening here on Chicago Corner.
Definitely. All right. So let's get into this story. Speaking of labor and having more respect and serving it better. We talked about this, I think, 2 shows back, that the Museum of Science and Industry was looking to unionize because of a lot of issues not addressed, and apparently it's not the easiest place to work or the nicest place to work. So the museum workers decided to unionize. So the Museum of Science and Industry workers asked bosses not to interfere with their unionizing effort. This comes to us from Maxwell Evans at Blacklog, Chicago. Dozens of employees have announced their intent to unionize at the museum. It's the latest site of union organizing among Chicago's cultural institutions. It's a very nice shot of the museum, left over from the World's Fair. Wait, World's Fair was the forgetting the year of the World's Fair.
I can't remember.
Yeah, one of the buildings that was left over from that event.
Yeah, they actually really completely overhauled it, because it was really just a shell.
Yeah,
of a thing.
Well, when
it was used for the World's Fair.
What shocked me in hindsight, and I'm a big fan of history, especially that era, was when you look at what the World's Fair in Chicago looked like. All those buildings and structures, they were beautiful, which led me to wonder why the hell take all that stuff down after the World's Fair is over with. Well, unfortunately, they were never built to last. They didn't use the most long-standing building materials. So, but the museum, they ended up reinforcing and doing more with.
Here it is. It was called the World's Columbian Exposition, which we now know as the World Fair. It happened in 1893, and some of you may not know that that's where the ice cream cone was invented.
I didn't know that.
Just so you know. It was a dude was selling ice cream, and another dude was selling waffles. And it was a hot day, and the dude was like, he was running out of bowls. That guy selling ice cream was running out of bowls. And he couldn't sell his ice cream fast enough, and he's like, okay. And then, so I guess they got together and figured out that, well, hey, how about an edible bowl or an edible cone? And so the ice cream cone was born.
The rest is history. If all of you out in the live chat want to see an extraordinarily entertaining, informative, and just beautiful movie set against the Columbian Exposition in 1893, the Chicago World's Fair, I would recommend a movie called The Current War. And it is about the current war related to the battle between Edison and Westinghouse, to introduce what current would be used and introduced at the Columbian Exposition, which obviously revolutionized not just the country, but the world as far as the introduction of electricity. But Benedict Cumberbatch plays Edison, and one of my favorite actors, Michael Shannon, plays George Westinghouse. And I mean, it's not like a heavy historical movie. These guys were at odds with each other as pioneers and, introducing things that completely like changed history in the world as far as power goes and modernization. But I love movies that are like time machines, and I've never seen the World's Fair as realistically portrayed in a film before, because you're usually just looking at documentaries with still images. And in this era of computer generated imagery and special effects and stuff, it was remarkable to see that era of Chicago, of the World's Fair, represented in that movie. The other movie I'm looking forward to that I don't know when it's going to come out because it's been in development forever, that's also set against the World Fair, is Devil in the White City, about America's first serial killer, H.H. Holmes, taking advantage of visitors.
They're based off a book, yeah.
Last I heard, it was going to be produced and directed by Scorsese, and Leonardo DiCaprio was rumored to play, I believe, the serial killer H.H. Holmes, and then I heard Tom Cruise was attached to it. But in the interim, go check out the current war on streaming, as we are briefly talking about the World's Fair as it related to the Museum of Science and Industry, bringing us back full circle to the original story and point of this rabbit hole we went down regarding the Museum of Science and Industry and the unionizing effort. So, workers at the Museum of Science and Industry are organizing a union and asking museum leaders to pledge in writing not to interfere in the effort. Dozens of employees at the museum at 5700 South Lakeshore Drive in Hyde Park announced their intent to unionize earlier this month. They're planning to affiliate with the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees Council 31. The union would represent about 140 employees and negotiate for better pay, more professional development opportunities, a zero-tolerance policy for discriminatory treatment, and improved health and safety policies. You would imagine that all that stuff would already be addressed. The fact that they have to form a union to actually force their employers to implement those kind of very equitable policies is shocking, disappointing, but unfortunately, maybe not as surprising as we should expect. According to a letter signed by 54 members of the union organizing committee, most of us make between $17 to $20 an hour. That's about what I make, and I live in Hyde Park, and I have to scramble, guest engagement worker Marcus Banks said at a press conference Wednesday outside the museum. At this institution, which should be a leader, the truth is most of us who do the work are struggling financially, Banks said. Museum leaders and management have discouraged the unionizing effort by telling you workers a union is unnecessary, accusing union organizers of bullying their coworkers and putting up misleading posters about unionizing in the break room, employees said. Workers signed a letter pledging to follow principles of a free and fair union organizing process following Wednesday's press conference and asked museum CEO Chevy Humphrey to also sign the pledge. The letter demands management stay neutral. The letter demands management stay neutral by not spending money on anti-union attorneys or consultants, not sharing anti-union talking points, and instructing managers not to talk about the upcoming union election with employees, among other points. Union organizers pledged not to disparage management in return. We won't let top management demonize us, and we won't let them separate us, Santi van Liesbetten said. We're going to keep talking to one another, sharing information, and supporting one another in any way we can, because that's what our union is all about. Viva la revolution. I think we think this is fantastic from some of our own experiences, Ed, don't we?
Yeah, I think it would be nothing but good for the workers of the Museum of Science and Industry to be officially unionized. It's my understanding that they had decent jobs there, but a lot of them were essentially contractor or part-time jobs and were not really paying as well as they should be for the types of positions that they were. And I think part of that is that the museum needs to start recognizing that if it needs to seek federal funding to make sure it's properly funding its employees, it should be doing that. And if it needs to find another way to make sure that its workers are getting, the conditions that they should get, then they got to figure that out.
Well, more importantly, too, though, Ed, not more importantly, but equally important, what a good look it would be for employers, for those at the top at the museum say, yeah, we support our workers. We're gonna support this. They have some serious issues that we need to address. I found I shared something in our private chat, Ed, that I'd like you to queue up. I was reminded of this today, and our friend of the show from Kerberos Media shared this. Johnny Axam.
Yeah,
And
Johnny was on the 420 panel.
yes, he was on the 420 panel. You know, this kind of relates to our story. So before we get back to the Museum of Science and Industry story and the union efforts there and minimum wages, let's play what Johnny shared on social media by way of a social media profile.
TikToker Mary E. Frost.
Mary E. Frost. That's what I was looking for. Yeah. Let's share what Mary has to say.
I just had the most infuriating conversation with my mother, who is a boomer, who owns her own business, and is complaining how she cannot find people. She cannot keep good workers. My mom owns a landscaping company, and her clients are like live in multi-million-dollar mansions. She doesn't just like cut grass. Like, she builds beautiful botanical gardens, like Japanese tea houses, imports stone, builds terraces, puts in fountains and like, you know, like palm trees and shit. Like her gardens are, some of them are like $500,000 gardens that she's installing into these people's homes. And in the past couple of years, she's had so many complaints about how she can't find good people. She had a slew of people steal from her last year. Like, she had one girl who was like, you know, a heroin addict, and she had another girl who like defrauded her for like $10,000. Like, all of this like fraud and problems because she keeps having issues finding and retaining good people. And recently she asked me to write some copy for her and do some like ad work. And she's like, I know what we need. We need like all these young people. They want to work at a fun work environment, and they need like, we need to make a brochure or like an ad with like happy smiling teenagers on the front. And that's how we're going to get them to work for me. I'm like, Mom, let me ask you a question. How much are you paying these people? And she's like, well, I start them out at $12 an hour. And I'm like, well, that's your problem. That's why you cannot retain good people. No amount of clever ad work by me, or pizza parties, or foosball tables in the conference center is going to keep people at your, you know, at your company.
I don't know, Jerry. Foosball sounds pretty tempting.
Not that there's anything wrong with pizza parties. We love our pizza, but it's funny she mentioned that because it's like, yeah, I've read horror stories about places of employment that don't understand why throwing a pizza party won't get people to come in and work for free on the weekends, unpaid.
Yeah.
To do work that they don't want to pay. Well, come on in. We'll give you free pizza if you can give your weekend away to work and put in some overtime. No, it doesn't work that way.
No.
Yes.
If you're paying them $12 an hour, like $12 an hour is what I got paid as a lifeguard in high school in like 2001,
and it wasn't enough then,
right?
That's not the wage. You cannot have that wage anymore. I was like, Mom, look, you couldn't get me to show up to a desk job where I could like take out my book and read for 8 hours. You couldn't get me to show up to that job for less than $20 an hour. That is the wage you need to be charging anymore. And she's like, that's too much. I can't afford that. And I'm like, what do you mean you can't afford that? Your gardens cost like $500,000. You could literally just tack on a $5,000 administration fee to every single thing you sell, and no one would notice. And she's like, blah, blah, blah. No one wants to work anymore. And I'm like, not for $12 an hour. I was like, Mom, the job that I have, just like answering phones and doing emails like an administrative assistant, I'm paid $20 an hour. She was like, oh, are you doing QuickBooks? You should be doing QuickBooks if you're administrator. And I was like, QuickBooks is an accounting software. If I was doing QuickBooks, I'd demand to be paid at least $50 an hour. And she was like, no, that's too much. And I'm like, you guys, your whole generation is so out of touch with what the going rate for everything is. She's like, I don't need your advice. And I'm like, okay, have fun getting stolen from for the next couple of years.
Bingo.
Man, oh man, was that dead on. Thank you, Johnny, for sharing that. I found it through his feed over on Twitter, and I reshared that. And she's absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely right. But getting back to the article now from the Museum of Science and Industry, Humphrey and museum management will review the letter and decide by noon Thursday whether to sign the pledge, Public Relations Director Kelsey Ryan said in a statement. I would really advise Public Relations Director Kelsey Ryan to tell museum management to get off their fucking asses and sign the pledge, because there's nothing unfair about it. Specifically in regards to the union organizers have pledged not to disparage management, and management should not try to thwart their efforts to make a living wage for themselves. Oh, yeah, exactly, Jimmy. And I saw Art's comment before, too. Yep. When it comes to union representation, we believe in and respect our employees' right to make an informed choice, though through a secret ballot vote supervised by the National Labor Relations Board. Public Relations Director Kelsey Ryan continued. Humphrey sent a letter to employees last week saying several workers shared with her, quote, feelings of being bullied into joining something they don't fully understand yet or don't want to support since the union effort began. Well, that's the thing. They need to understand and support. They need to understand that this union effort, which will probably, I would imagine, take a few bucks from them in membership fees, ultimately is going to be better for them. Okay, the long-term ramifications of having a union to represent your interests, even if it costs a couple bucks out of your paycheck to do that, is going to be so much more of a benefit than to not be educated about what that union is about and how it's actually going to serve your interests. The problem is too many workers feel that they're being bullied and forced into understanding something because it's too complicated, too hard for them. Those are the people who are most routinely exploited by management, that rely on employees that think things are too complicated to understand, and unfortunately, more often than less, are not understanding that they're not looking at how to protect their own best interests. Museum leaders will ensure workers can make an informed and private choice on the union vote, free from intimidation, bullying, or pressure. Humphrey wrote. I mean, I don't know, Ed. Do you think that those that are trying to form the union are trying to intimidate or bully other employees? Maybe, certainly, I would imagine, if you're going to be fair, yeah, there's going to be some pressure because it's an important thing that everybody's got to pay attention to. But I wonder, what they identify as being intimidating or bullying to make that kind of a statement.
You'll find that employers will always use that kind of tactic to try and pretend like they're protecting their employees from unions.
Right. Because the unions are just look, there are a lot of bad actors in unions. Okay. Unfortunately, a lot of unions have become more pro-management leaning and aren't really representing all of their members, but that's not all unions. There needs to be reform, and there's corruption everywhere, man. I mean, I guess that's what unfortunately muddies this whole examination of what's going on. Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle, Alderman-elect Desmond Yancey of the 5th, and Alderman Jeanette Taylor of the 20th stood with workers Wednesday morning to support the unionizing effort. Yancey, in whose ward the museum will be located when he's sworn into city council next month, said he visited the museum frequently as a Kenwood Academy student when admission was free. But today you can't go to the museum for free, Yancey said. It's a very expensive place for families to be able to learn more about this city. However, our workers here aren't seeing the benefit of that. And that's a very good point. First of all, our museums along the museum campus should be free as much as they can be free. But for those that are charging a lot of money and making it expensive to go and enjoy something that's been there so long, to educate people, how is it that the employees working there aren't seeing any of the benefits of that, those extraordinarily high admission rates? Museum of Science and Industry employees are the latest group of workers at Chicago cultural institutions to pursue unionization. Workers at the Peggy Notebaert Nature Museum, the Field Museum, the Art Institute of Chicago, and its school and the Newberry Library have formed unions with Council 31 in recent months. So that's a good sign. About 60 craftspeople and laborers at the Museum of Science and Industry are members of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 134. Museum leaders have a long working relationship with the Trade Employees Union, Ryan said. So a quick update in regards to what we were talking about earlier regarding Devil in the White City. Ed, thanks for sharing this in the live chat. I'm horribly disappointed, though.
Yeah.
According to the Hollywood Reporter, Hulu is not moving forward with plans for a limited series adaptation of Devil in the White City. The project is now going to be shopped with the hopes of finding a new home.
Yeah. So I guess Keanu was supposed to be the lead in that
Oh,
too.
wow. He would have been great in that role. And Art also shared in the chat. I caught it late. The Project Devil in the White City are all dead in studio hell. No go them at all. It's a shame. Well,
yeah, some of the streaming companies, they're like trying to save money, and they're cutting production budgets or stopping development on programs. And it's like, you guys, again, I'm gonna say it again, shooting yourselves in the dick, which I guess is my accidental catchphrase now.
I'm glad you embraced the body organ instead of the foot, because I was always referencing the dick also, because I just think it punctuates things much better. Art, back to the union angle. When we wanted a raise at Kinko's, we'd get a pizza party instead. Of course you did. Of course you did.
And that's nothing. No, that's no slam at pizza.
No, it's not. Yeah, or any food. But
yeah, that's
just figuring your employees are simps and you can get away with just throwing food at them, which is a short-term indulgence and fix. All right. So in relation to that story about the Museum of Science and Industry, I think you shared this link, this Twitter status link with me, Ed. Let me copy it and put it up here. Actually, you can probably.
Oh, you want me to get that up there?
Yeah. It'll probably pop up faster if. I love this. This is hilarious.
Can I read this one?
Sure.
Yeah. And I'm going to read it in my Bill Curtis voice.
Okay.
This comes from Jeff Shirky on Twitter. 79 years ago today in Chicago, the U.S. government took over retail giant Montgomery Ward and physically ejected the company's millionaire chairman, Sewell Avery, after he defied an order from the National War Labor Board to recognize his workers' democratically elected union.
Do you think you'd ever see that today, Ed? No. The unions, management runs the show. Management runs our government, okay? Corporations, not labor. The Democratic Party decided to embrace corporations and big business and basically abandon the working class and the unions, which is what's led to so much of the problems within our country economically and infrastructurally today. But this is something I wish we would see today, right? People just, this guy, this millionaire owner of Montgomery Wards, or, to our interest, Ed, wouldn't it be cool to see the same kind of picture with Ken Griffin at Citadel for his constant ongoing market manipulation?
Oh my God, there's so many crooks on Wall Street right now. I don't think, do they have enough room in Cook County for them all? I don't know. Because they could repurpose some of those empty buildings.
Yeah.
Oh.
So if you scroll down, there's some other interesting follow-ups to that particular tweet. Jeff continues, it was one of the many wartime seizures of private companies by the government to try resolving labor disputes. This one was a political fiasco, partly due to that photo, and didn't last long, but the government seized Montgomery Ward again 8 months later over the same anti-union issues. Sewell Avery was a prominent member funder of right-wing anti-New Deal business groups like the Liberty League and Crusaders, which were implicated. We've talked about this story. This is another great story. A lot of people don't know about the history of this. So this guy, the guy who ran Montgomery Wards, was a member of the Liberty League and Crusaders, which were implicated in the failed 1933 through 1934 coup plot against FDR, as alleged by Major General Smedley Butler, as dramatized in the 2022 movie Amsterdam, which I also recommend.
I must have watched that one.
Yeah, Amsterdam, it's not, I mean, it kind of takes a kind of a comedic light look at that historical moment. But I enjoyed it. I was surprised it didn't get very good reviews. But if you want to get some insight into that moment in history that I don't remember learning about in history classes. In fact, I remember learning about that attempted coup in Oliver Stone's Untold History of the United States, which is an amazing documentary series everybody should run to go see. It's 8 episodes, about an hour an episode, but it's really easy viewing. And I think you can stream it on Netflix, if I'm not mistaken, or you can find it in some other streaming services.
And once again, thanks to Jeff Shirky, who is a labor historian, educator, journalist, and unionist, and assistant professor at SUNY.
I like this particular tweet that I'm going to scroll down to real quickly to cover.
Oh, is there more?
Well, scroll down to Alfred Hitchcock and read what's there.
Oh, hold on. Do I have it?
You
They keep making you have to click to look at more stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've got it here.
Keep
How far down is it?
It shouldn't be that far down. Is it past Gus Fring? Let me see on my end if it's past Gus Fring.
Well, Gus Fring is like, oh.
No, it's not too far down from.
No, see, they change the thread if you don't click the.
Well, I'll share.
It's like, okay.
Yes. Ejecting them from their companies is the compromise position.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the one I think a lot of us would prefer.
Collect your torches and go!
I love our drop-ins. Okay, so moving on to now this is a really, 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 really important story, and I'm sorry it's taken this long to get to it, but I've been trying to move the show along. I don't think we've been dwelling too much on stories. I mean, there's a lot to unpack, but this is major news, and unfortunately, it's a shame. Our former colleague, Mr. Cabello, could not be with us here to celebrate this, although there are several angles to the story, because I know that this is a personal crusade he's always been very, very vocal about, and that's lead in Chicago's water. And this comes from the Chicago Tribune. Now, a decade into the work, 10 years have passed, Ed.
Yeah.
A decade, and we knew that there was a problem, but it's taken a decade for Chicago to finally take out toxic lead pipes when it replaces water mains. Now, okay, let's take the win and look at the positive side of this before we go into what preceded this, which is just utterly embarrassing and unacceptable, and has a lot to do with outgoing Mayor Lori Lightfoot, who can't get out fast enough. But
no, sir. No,
Chicago
sir.
spent
No,
the past
sir.
decade
You will stop speaking.
tearing up streets
You will stop speaking.
to replace aging, sometimes leaky
you're
water
full of
mains.
crap, and that's the nicest thing that I can say.
Cost of water to pay for the work. I didn't know that. That's why water bills went up, was because of this work. So that was Chicago's doing, the municipal powers. That was their doing, their choice. On every one of the 792 miles dug up, crews hired by the Department of Water Management connected new cast iron water mains to old lead pipes known as service lines that bring water into single-family homes and two-flats. The department continued this routine even after a 2013 federal study of Chicago homes found it can expose people to alarming concentrations of lead, a brain-damaging metal with no safe level of exposure. Now, with fewer than 90 miles of water mains still to be replaced, state law is forcing city workers and contractors for the first time to pull out toxic pipes at the same time. Great, you're doing it now. What the fuck took you so long? Starting last week on the 3100th block of South Ridgeway Avenue in Little Village, crews are going house to house, reconnecting Chicagoans to the municipal water systems with safe copper pipes. The project marks the beginning of a more concerted effort to rid the nation's third largest city of roughly 400,000 lead service lines, which Chicago required by law until the end of 1986, decades after most other cities banned the use of the toxic metal to convey drinking water. We're happy they are finally beginning to address this problem, though it's taken them far too long, said Kim Wasserman, executive director of Little Village Environmental Justice Organization. 4 years ago, Mayor Lori Lightfoot promised during her first campaign to begin addressing a health threat her predecessors insisted didn't exist. Richie Daley, Rahm Emanuel. By the end of March, only 451 lead service lines had been replaced in low-income households that qualified for a share of the federal grant money. Another 306 were replaced during response to leaky pipes, and 110 were paid for by individual property owners, according to Water Department records. Now, there's an interesting link in this article that we're going to kind of go into just as a little historical reflection after I get through this article. I'm pointing to it here. Mayor Lori Lightfoot set a goal to replace 650 toxic lead pipes in Chicago in 2021. Before this article, so far, only 3 had been removed. But NASCAR, Ed, priorities. For a number of reasons, the pace of replacements is about to speed up, not only in Chicago, but statewide. A 2021 state law requires small Illinois water utilities to replace all lead service lines within 15 years. Larger systems get up to 34 years to complete the work. Why do you think that is? Because of their lobbyists. They're lobbyists kicking the can down the road. Another provision of the law demands that service lines must be replaced whenever a new water main is installed. Lightfoot's lobbyists in Springfield, you think they supported it?
Of course not.
No. Blocked the law from passing until state legislators agreed to give Chicago up to 50 years to finish.
And then how many years will be left on the parking meter deal by then?
I wonder who was greasing her palms on kicking that can down the road. At the mayor's behest, lawmakers also exempted the city from the water main provision until January.
I don't need to remind everybody that our federal government could have paid for all of our infrastructure upgrades in every city and every town, everywhere, and it wouldn't have had to cost us a cent. But they're choosing not to.
Oh, and then you've got Lori Lightfoot choosing not to, also choosing to stonewall and prevent the efforts.
What a fucking bitch, am I right?
Gone. Thank God she's gone. Mayor-elect Brandon Johnson pledged during his campaign to make lead service line replacements a priority. In March, he noted on Twitter that the majority of childhood lead poisoning cases in the city aren't, where do you think they are, Ed?
South Side.
Yeah, in predominantly Black and Latino neighborhoods. That ends with the Johnson administration because water is life, he wrote. More money to pay for the work is on the way. Chicago is bound to get a cut of the $3 billion Congress set aside last year for lead service line replacements, fulfilling a campaign promise by President Joe Biden. Well, you know, and we needed to ship the rest of those billions over to Ukraine so that, you know, so that they can rebuild their infrastructure to continue having it blown up by the Russians.
Yeah.
The city is also borrowing another $336 million from a low-interest federal loan program for water projects. Chicago's own monitoring shows the city has a big problem with lead in water, said Eric Olson, a senior strategist at the nonprofit Natural Resources Defense Council, who for decades has clamored for a more aggressive response from federal, state, and local governments. What you need is somebody who actually wants to fix it, who steps up to the plate and asks, what are the impediments and how do we get rid of them? Newark, New Jersey highlights what can happen when city leaders stop denying they have lead in the water problems and get to work eliminating them. After he was criticized for his initial response to testing that found high lead levels in Newark schools and homes, Mayor Ross Baraka persuaded New Jersey lawmakers, you know what? I'm just going to have to embrace, where are they?
Glasses?
Yeah. Yep. You know, my vanity precludes me from putting them on all the time, but all right.
This Jerry looks for his glasses moment was brought to you by what was it brought to you by?
P.L. Sullivan's
chicken wing and currency exchange
wing
international money laundering racket thing.
You know where it's at. Behind, where is it?
Oh, it's behind that one thing, that one place, behind that alley. You know the one.
You know the one. All right. So Mayor Ross Baraka persuaded New Jersey lawmakers to clear the way for local ordinances that eliminated the need for a property owner's permission to replace a lead service line, a critical change that helped get the lead out in rental properties. City officials declared a health emergency and agreed to pay to replace about 23,000 lead service lines rather than requiring property owners to contribute or making them fill out paperwork proving they couldn't afford the work. Because of course you would. Let's just not embrace and address what the problem is. Let's make it harder for people to actually implement what's needed. Jesus Christ. Baraka also negotiated deals with trade unions to train local people for a project that was expected to take a decade to complete, but was all but done in less than 3 years, Ed. Crews fanned out across the city, replacing up to 120 service lines a day at one point, Kareem Adim, director of Newark's Water and Sewer Department, said. And here's, let's see here if there's an image of that. Bring the screen back up. That's in Chicago. Here's in Newark. Here's the photo. Oh no, that's from South Lawndale. Okay, so they're showing Chicago images. Well, during the editorial article. Anyway, we've shown how to get this done because we had the political will to do it. Adim said in an interview. That's what every city needs: political will. In Chicago, Water Department spokeswoman Megan Vides declined to make Commissioner Andrea Chang available for comment. The department has hired and trained more people to replace service lines and is seeking funding for a multi-year, multi-billion-dollar effort, Vides said in an email. Ingesting even tiny concentrations of lead can permanently damage the developing brains of children and contribute to heart disease, kidney failure, and other health problems later in life. In 2018, researchers estimated more than 400,000 deaths a year in the United States are linked to lead exposure. Like many other cities, Chicago adds corrosion-fighting chemicals to the water supply that, in theory, form a protective coating inside lead pipes to prevent leaching. But the Water Department acknowledges that lead-contaminated water can still flow out of faucets, especially if people haven't taken a shower, done laundry, or washed dishes for, what do you think, Ed? A couple days?
Several hours.
Several hours. I don't know about you. I take a shower every day, and I'm washing dishes once a day, running the dishwasher every other day. But I don't run all my water like every couple hours to get that protective coating circulating. Studies in Chicago and other cities also have found high concentrations of the toxic metal can flow out of taps for weeks or even months after lead service lines have been jostled by street work or plumbing repairs, including water main replacements. A 2018 Tribune analysis found that lead in tap water is a danger throughout Illinois. More than 8 out of every 10 Illinoisans live in a community where the toxic metal was detected in at least one home during the previous 6 years, the newspaper found. Dozens of homes had hundreds and even thousands of parts per billions of lead in tap water, just as extreme as what researchers found during the same period in Flint, Michigan, where mismanagement of the public water system drew a world spotlight to a scourge that remained largely hidden for decades. Meanwhile, what was Lori Lightfoot's priority during this time? Chicago. Let's can Chicago water and sell it and monetize it. And I just have to wonder, I'm surprised that, in their branding and their marketing, they didn't share what was it now? Thousands of parts per billion of lead per can.
Yeah, so we had fun with that story, didn't we?
And the can should have been made of lead. Should have been made of lead also, I would imagine, to just keep that consistent. So what got us here? I don't want to take too long on it, but I'll read from this too, because this is just like abominable, as I mentioned previously.
Hey, the can art was pretty cool, though. I mean, as a collectible goes, it's pretty sweet. But seriously, lead in the water. She knew there was lead in the water.
Yeah.
Why would you do something like this?
Let's market and sell it so we can poison more people.
It's like set yourself up to be mocked more, if that's even possible. She found a way.
Lightfoot promoted Chicago while Chicago burned. To harken back to a phrase of Nero fiddled while Rome burned. It's essentially what we got going on. All right, so how did we get there? This is great. This is reported in 2021 by the Tribune by Michael Hawthorne. Mayor Lori Lightfoot set a goal to replace 650 toxic lead pipes in Chicago in 2021. So far, 3 have been removed. And Mr. Hawthorne went on to continue reporting briefly from that article, just to have some context on how goddamn lucky we are that she's gone. She's going to be gone shortly. 3 toxic water pipes gone. Another 399,997 to go. After denying for years that Chicago had a widespread problem with brain-damaging lead in tap water, city officials are embarking on a long-delayed campaign to eliminate hidden hazards at virtually every home and 2 flat built before the mid-1980s. The Department of Water Management is moving at a snail's pace so far, though. Workers this week dug up the front yard at just the 3rd house approved for a safe copper water line, which replaced one of the thousands of lead pipes connected to the city's network of underground street mains. At the current rate, there is no chance the department meets Mayor Lori Lightfoot's plan for 650 pipe replacements during 2021. There's no incentive to work faster. A new state law gives Chicago a half-century to finish the job. At her urging, as we just reported in the other article, a timeline demanded by the mayor. Cities tend to be reluctant and even afraid to start this much-needed work, said Tom Neltner, Chemicals Policy Director at the nonprofit Environmental Defense Fund and former Assistant Commissioner at the Indiana Department of Environmental Management. Most are finding that once they get it going, it is a lot easier than they had feared. Lightfoot promised nearly a year ago to start ripping out toxic pipes known as service lines, a legacy ignored during the past century by most of her predecessors at City Hall. The amount of earth moving and number of workers observed by the Tribune this week at a Southside bungalow suggests Chicago still has a lot to learn from other cities that have made lead pipe replacements more efficient and less costly. So
a thought has occurred, Jerry.
Yes.
50 years from 2021 gets you to 2071. And that's 100 years after 200 years after the Great Chicago Fire?
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if it's like, well, by then they'll have come up with another excuse to delay getting all the pipes replaced because they're busy planning for this Great Chicago Fire bicentennial.
that Red Moon tried to celebrate several years ago unsuccessfully. Remember that whole debacle? We talked about.
Yeah, the float that caught fire. Yeah.
Let's lay up effigies of Chicago burning on the Chicago River. It's like that'd be like sinking another ship to commemorate the losses of the Titanic. That's just not the way that you commemorate and pay tribute to all the lost souls that died during the Chicago Fire.
Yeah, or we'd like to celebrate the bicentennial of the Great Chicago Fire by finally announcing that we no longer have lead in our drinking water.
Yeah.
After X number of years.
And how many deaths related to toxic lead poisoning? Art says, let's piss into bottles and sell it as water in the city. Chicago, brought to you by the letter L.
The letter L. L for lead.
Oh, so Jimmy, I'm assuming that you're referencing The Untold History of the United States. He did publish a book. I'm not sure if the book came first or if it was released in conjunction with the documentary series, but love Oliver Stone. Oliver Stone is the best. And yeah, so they raised our water bill now to pay for something to be fixed in 50 years. Of course it's bullshit. But that's the Chicago way, as Connery was quoted referencing in The Untouchables. Poor Sean Connery. I miss him. I was actually on a Sean Connery movie kick. I'd never seen Finding Forrester, and I watched it on Vudu. What a great movie, man. It surprised me because it wasn't the type of movie I would have assumed Connery would have been in, let alone.
Oh, he's been on all kinds of movies.
Yeah, but really advocated for. It's about him playing an aging literature professor, mentoring African American youth basketball player in New York. Great movie. And I was like even more impressed to hear that he was so much a part of like not only making that movie happen, but casting the unknown actor who played the basketball player. And anyway, hat tip to Connery for his memorable role in The Untouchables, which is a Chicago classic. Zardoz!
And Highlander.
Well, he had some misses too.
I enjoyed him in that movie, although his character and was a really weird match for him.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we could go down the rabbit hole on Connery movies, but I would recommend, if you haven't seen them, ladies and gentlemen, and you're a fan of Sean Connery, one classic from 1975, a lot of people don't recall, a great action swords in the desert historical epic called The Wind and the Lion. He starred in with Candice Bergen. Great romantic action adventure, along with the stuff he's remembered for The Untouchables. And Jimmy, to your point about, it's bullshit that Chicago is taxing us for work that wasn't going to be done in 50 years.
You're not to approve of your methods.
Yeah? Well, you're not from Chicago.
The Chicago way, although that's not Connery's quote. There's Connery's quote was the Chicago way, but we quoted Kevin Costner there. Anyway, moving on, a follow-up story related to where money goes and where it doesn't, because there will be a story after this punctuating our sad prioritization at the expense of abandoning those in need, like so many displaced people who were relying on the CHA to provide housing for them. The city calls the Chicago Fire soccer facility a win for the near West Side, but public housing activists say they won't back down. I'm wondering if Johnson can do something as he enters office to, I don't know that he can completely reverse this, but reduce some of the damage and put some pressure on CHA to start doing their goddamn job and stop giving away. They're not giving away the land, they're selling it, but it's at a pittance, and it's taking land away that's needed for people that need low-income housing.
Yeah, and this was totally a quid pro quo thing.
Of course it was. Yeah. We went into how much money this guy, the billionaire owner of the Chicago Fire, donated to Lightfoot's campaign. At a groundbreaking ceremony Tuesday, city officials praised the deal while residents protested the use of public housing land for the training center. The soccer training facility it's not even a stadium where people can go like watch. I mean, I'm sure people can watch training there, but it's not like a stadium where you like go for the games. It's a fucking training facility. The soccer training facility is being built on vacant land owned by the Chicago Housing Authority on the near West Side. The site, bounded by Roosevelt Road, Ashland Avenue, 14th Street, and Loomis Street, was once part of the Adams, Brooks, Loomis, and Abbott developments, together known as the Abla Homes. In 2017, the city vowed to redevelop the site with more than 2,400 units of improved, affordable, and mixed-use housing, partially for residents displaced when most of the Abla homes were destroyed. But of course, that never happened. The Chicago Fire soccer team signed a lease for at least the next 4 decades after the federal government signed off on the deal in March. Quote, I'm very proud to say with today... I'm sorry, Ed. I'm going there. I'm very proud to say with today's groundbreaking, my administration has now broken ground on 2 of the largest parcels of vacant land on the West Side. Earlier last year, we broke ground on the long-dormant facility at Roosevelt and Costner, both Invest Southwest projects, which means I made a boatload of money. No. Which means we're activating over 50 acres of vacant land on the West Side and repurposing that land to serve our residents.
No, you were right. You made a boatload of money.
The Fire are owned by billionaire business leader Joe Mansueto, a campaign donor to Lightfoot. Why can't the feds make cases and throw people like any politician like her that makes money off the Commonwealth to enrich themselves? Just God, it's just so, we're numb to it, man. We're like frogs in the boiling water. We're just you turn the heat up until we realize we're being cooked alive. That's what these politicians do, man, with the gaslighting and the fact that the authorities are not just it's unacceptable. Period. This is a bribe. It's not a donation to your campaign. This is an outright fucking bribe. He gave money to your campaign in the hopes that you would win and that he would get something back. And you gave away public housing land to this team that he could afford to pay for himself buying somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
The soccer team plans to build a 53,000 square foot, 2-story performance center, 2.5 hybrid glass pitches, and 3 synthetic turf pitches, according to the city. And there's the outgoing criminal, Lori Lightweight. The team also does. I censored myself. I wasn't going to go there. The team has also discussed starting a youth mentorship program and an after-school soccer training academy because the kids need after-school soccer training for their careers in soccer, not an affordable place to live.
What a fucking bitch, am I right?
Alderman Jason Irvin of the 28th and the Chicago Housing Authority CEO Tracy Scott also praised the project, saying the fire will make an $8 million investment in the CHA on top of about $40 million in lease payments for the land over the next 4 decades that people aren't going to be able to live on in affordable housing.
That's a drop in the bucket for him.
That includes annual rent the soccer team will pay, which will vary based on inflation and future appraisals, according to the agency's. I'm not going to go on with it. I feel the calming effects of the Norcos I took earlier starting to wear off as I get into these stories.
Yeah, this one's kind of mildly irritating. Also, I would have gone with Leadfoot.
Leadfoot, yeah, Lori Leadfoot. Well, you just did,
or Lead Pipe.
Yeah, no, it was more appropriate.
Lori Lead Pipe.
But that's what she's been focused on, right? That all of her focus was on satisfying big business interests, donors that she ultimately also benefited from, while putting off the importance of the lead pipe replacements across the city by actually blocking efforts downstate to allow that to happen sooner.
CHA CEO Tracy Scott is infuriating me.
Yeah, her too. Another one that I can't describe any more eloquently.
Just from this quote here, where she says, "I'd like to make one point crystal clear: CHA will fulfill our commitment to developing new housing in this area," Scott said. Yeah, what evidence of that exists, and why aren't there houses there now? 30 years, 30 freaking years,
fucking years.
What a fucking bitch, am I right?
I don't know if there's anything we can do about this now that they've broken ground, but going forward, hopefully we'll see some changes. We got a new city council. We got a new mayor. Maybe we'll actually see some accountability.
Yeah. All right, so we reported previously on Walmart picking up stakes and leaving a lot of South and West Side neighborhoods because Paul Vallis didn't win. Oh, I'm sorry. That's not what they claimed, but we know that's why they left. Because
that's why.
They were big donors to Vallis's campaign. He didn't win. They weren't going to get whatever sweetheart cushy deals they would with the city. They blame crime because apparently the Chicago Police Department, which our tax dollars pay for, they're supposed to go in and police Walmart stores as opposed to Walmart having their own internal security. But all right, so they're leaving. So this editorial, I don't know what you'd call it. Yeah, it's a commentary from the Chicago Sun-Times. Actually, I guess tries to make lemonade from the lemon. And I saw the headline. I hadn't completely read the commentary before the show. But I want to read and I want to unwrap it and see if this commentary actually makes a point or if it's just more bullshit to try to, cover up for the fact that Walmart is punishing a community because they didn't get what they wanted with a Paul Vallis. Paul Vallis, mayoral, what do we call it? Office, Paul Vallis
installation.
Paul Vallis installation. Yeah. All right. So this comes from Mark H. Morial through the Sun Times. Walmart closures can pave the way for local small businesses in Chicago. Okay, maybe. Yeah. I actually like that idea. Unfortunately, it costs a lot of money to build, smaller businesses or get loans for those small businesses in Chicago on that side of the city, which is why it was great to have a big box store there that could afford to do that and provide pharmacy services and affordable groceries and stuff. One of the best examples of small business incubation in Black neighborhoods is New Black Wall Street in Atlanta, Mark Morial writes. So what does Mark share? It's all too tempting to seek a big, simple answer for a series of complex problems. That appears to be what happened when Chicago's leaders relied on promises from a single big box retailer to provide an economic engine for some of the city's most vulnerable neighborhoods. The closure of 4 Chicago Walmart stores, 3 of which served low-income working class communities of color, leaves people wondering where they will buy groceries and shoes and medicine. What we should be wondering is whether a single retailer that sells groceries and shoes and medicine is the best business model for a neighborhood that desperately needs not just access to goods, but also economic opportunity.
Yep.
At the National Urban League and our 92 affiliates across the country, we recognize that small businesses are the lifeblood, not just of the urban communities that we serve, but of the U.S. economy as a whole. Amen to that. Small businesses create 2/3 of net new jobs and account for 44% of our economic activity. For every dollar spent at a small business, 68 cents stays in the local community. That dollar further creates an additional 48 cents in local business activity as a result of employees and local businesses purchasing local goods and services.
That's
New York
an important
Public
point.
It is, which is why I was curious to see what are we going to learn from this. New York Public Markets, Atlanta's New Black Wall Street. In 2020 and 2021, as Black-owned businesses were closing at twice the rate of white-owned enterprises during the economic disruption of a worldwide pandemic, our Urban League entrepreneurship centers created more than 1,300 new small businesses. The departure of Walmart creates an opportunity for the city to partner with small businesses to create sustainable, thriving retail centers that contribute to the economic vitality of the communities they serve. New York City, where the National Urban League is headquartered, has partnered with small businesses to provide affordable fresh food to communities throughout the city since 1937. Each of the 6 New York City public markets reflects the cultural heritage and history of its neighborhood, from the Latino influences of East Harlem's La Marqueta to the Italian traditions of Arthur Avenue Market in the Bronx. Yeah, this makes a lot of sense, and this is what should be represented in the communities. One of the best examples of this kind of partnership actually grew out of an abandoned big box store on the edge of Atlanta, Georgia. At the New Black Wall Street Market in Stonecrest, more than 100 mostly minority-owned small businesses line the aisles of a former Target store, aisles that now bear the names of famous Black entrepreneurs like Madam C.J. Walker and A.G. Gaston. Developer Lancaster Bill Allen created the project through his small business incubator, the Allen Entrepreneurial Institute. The institute.
I think that's a weird way to spell Lester.
Oh, developer Lester Bill Allen. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I thought I've never heard the name Leicester, but maybe it's pronounced Lester. The institute is a quote-unquote spoke in the U.S. Small Business Administration's Community Navigator program. You know what? With all the brightness being reflected in my eyes, I've got to really quickly put on my dark mode. Will that do it? There we go. Okay. That's better. The Institute is a quote-unquote spoke in the U.S. Small Business Administration's Community Navigator program that supports small businesses in underserved communities. The National Urban League serves as a hub for the program. Allen was inspired by the historic Greenwood community of Tulsa, Oklahoma, also known as Black Wall Street, which was destroyed in the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. Another interesting historical moment a lot of people don't know about. He had hoped to open on the 100th anniversary of the massacre in June of 2021, but the pandemic delayed the opening until October. I'm now noticing, wait a minute. Hang on a second, guys.
if you ever have a chance to watch the televised version of the Watchmen, they do an alternate universe version of what happened to people after Black Wall Street. And it's an interesting thing to watch because you kind of get a history lesson of what happened on actual Black Wall Street, but they mix in a bunch of superhero stuff in there. It's a fun show to watch.
Yeah, and I did see that opening episode, and I never knew about that Tulsa massacre until it was dramatized in that HBO Watchmen series. And I'm like, why hasn't anybody made an actual serious movie about this moment in history? You know, because it's crazy when you unwrap what actually happened then. All right, hang on a second, guys. There we go. This was the problem. I just needed a little bit more light. Okay. Allen was inspired by the historic Greenwood community of Tulsa, Oklahoma, also known as Black Wall Street, which was destroyed in the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. He had hoped to open on the 100th anniversary of the massacre in June of 2021, but the pandemic delayed opening till October. Quote, I just think that this country being built on the backs of slavery, we don't own enough of this country which we have built, Allen said. In addition to charging below market rent, the market offers 4 membership tiers: resident merchant, pop-up, consignment, and virtual. The pop-up option allows for trial runs pending space availability and product approval. Before the market opened in the fall of 2021, the residents of Stonecrest, which is 90% Black, had to leave their neighborhood to do most of their shopping or eating out. Now, not only are their dollars staying in their local community, people from outside the neighborhood are flocking to the market. It has become a destination for tourists and visiting dignitaries alike. I hope this will be duplicated all across the country, Allen told Capital B News. I would hope that in small towns and villages, we can take self-ownership and we can own things within our community and beyond. Chicago's leadership, as well as the leaders of many urban communities, should seek a new model such as the new Black Wall Street project, because bigger is not always better. Mark H. Morial is president and CEO of the National Urban League. He served as mayor of New Orleans from 1994 to 2002 and is a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania and the Georgetown University Law Center. So that was an op-ed in the Sun-Times, and I think very well stated.
Ooh, we got this next story is popping up all kinds of stuff onto my screen here. Okay. Yeah. Just going to take this moment to remind everyone it is 10 p.m. Central Time, and make sure that you breathe in and out once in a while. Oxygen is important. I cannot hear you, Jerry. Your microphone is out again. But while we're waiting for Jerry to get his microphone back, I just want to thank all of our Patreon supporters once again. If you'd like to support this channel and make sure that Jerry's microphone is working for more than 87% of the show, you can support us at patreon.com/Chicago Corner.
How about now?
Oh, it's working now. Okay.
Yeah, I had a memory issue, and for some reason, whatever. I'm back. I like what Jimmy had to share in the live chat here. Yeah, let's bulldoze the Walmart and make community gardens and farmers markets. Love it. Mm-hmm. That's a good idea, Jimmy. And there are so many good ideas that come from Jimmy because, as we know, Jimmy saves the world.
It's true. Very true.
Ray of hope and sunshine. All right, so let's get back to what our next story is. So as I pulled this story up, I'm thinking to myself, this is kind of like it's not really national, although it deals with a national figure, but this should hopefully help our YouTube algorithm as far as guiding new viewers to our page because we
Yeah,
love
because it's the most glorious, important, shiny, and best story that we could ever possibly have.
Yep. By the way, as I'm juggling buttons here, where are we? Guys, stand by.
Whoa, hold on a second. I think we got you muted there, Donnie Short Fingers McCarthy.
No, is it me?
Oh, wait, no, you just had it on mute.
My tax breaks are the best tax breaks. Is it working?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. You fixed the mouth on him.
Dummy
Now he's never gonna shut up.
Shut up. There we go. Yeah. I had jaw surgery, so now you can all suffer my insufferable commentary on any story related to me. All right, so let's bring the story up. Did it come up? No. Juggling all this stuff.
I can put it up there.
Yeah, I got
You're concentrating on
the performance.
On a performance here. Let me get the thing up on the screen for you.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just read from it. Okay. And this story is brought to us by Dummy Trump. So Dummy Trump is going to read it for us. All right. Get another kind of here. I mean, I got to make use of my props here, right?
You do.
In Illinois court on Monday, upheld a board's decision that my namesake tower in Chicago was overvalued by officials in 2011, setting me and my co-owners on a path to receiving $1 million in property tax refunds. The court's 13-page decision came after it ruled the Cook County Board of Review and county prosecutors failed to present any expert testimony in support of its estimation of value for the Trump International Hotel and Tower. The payment will be parceled out. Damn these advertisements.
Oh, is that popping
Payment will be parceled out by the Cook County Treasurer's Office in 339 separate refunds, according to the Chicago Sun-Times, and will be drawn from the city of Chicago and a number of other government agencies this year. A significant chunk of the refunds, about $540,000, is expected to come from the property taxes that were expected to go to the Chicago public school systems. How do you like that, MAGA? I got to work on my Trump impression. I'm not quite.
It wasn't bad. That was not bad, considering it was your first time also having to do it while puppeting, puppeteering.
Dummy Trump. Plus, when I left the desk here, I inadvertently jostled the microphone and almost knocked the stand down. So I had to reconnect that before.
Yes, and thank you, Kathy, for correcting. I had said Central Standard Time. It is Central Daylight Time.
So how about that? In addition to probably potentially beating a rape rap,
he's beating a tax thing too.
Yeah. He's he's going to be getting a tax break from money that should be going to Chicago public schools.
Well, or a refund because maybe they screwed him like they're screwing everybody else on taxes in the city.
And let's keep in mind too, that deal was brokered by none other than Burger King, disgraced outgoing alderperson Ed Burke, who saw the writing on the wall and realized with all of these charges filed against him by the feds, if he remained and if he ran again and remained, at some point he probably would have been perp walked out of City Hall. We could only have looked forward to that moment. But so yeah, Donald Trump's getting $1 million refund on his property because, you know, he and his partners just can't afford the property taxes downtown. Just more example of like the elites, the status quo people just getting what they want at the expense here, clearly, of money that was going to go to Chicago public schools to enrich education, to help support the programs there. Okay. Chicago officials meet to discuss resources for asylum seekers. Let's quickly run that video.
Surge in migrants here in Chicago has city leaders scrambling to find places for them to stay.
WGN's Gaynor Hall has details now on a special council meeting called to try to help this crisis.
Yeah, it is a scramble, Ray, and Florida city officials say they are working against time, against money, and space, with the surging numbers of asylum seekers far outpacing available resources.
Our system is over capacity. Make no mistake, we are in a surge and things have yet to peak.
Sleeping inside Chicago police districts, families with nowhere else to go.
This is not safe. And it's not the right thing to do, the way to treat people.
For God's sake, listen to us. We need to collaborate so that we can bring refugees in areas where we have the infrastructure.
In a virtual city council committee meeting, Commissioner Brandy Canazzi said as of this morning, the city has 0 shelter beds available for families. Chicago facing a recent increase in the number of people arriving daily by plane and bus from border states, in addition to the population of people who were already unhoused. Outgoing Mayor Lori Lightfoot sent council members a letter asking them to work to help identify large locations that can serve as shelter.
None of us are okay with families sleeping in police stations. And so that is just, we've got to make hard decisions as a city, and we are looking to council for support and guidance on where do we go to next and what do we open.
Space is always going to be an issue. Olive Branch Mission partners with the city, providing housing for more than 100 new arrivals since late last year.
We, of course, have the asylum seekers, but homelessness never stopped. We're still servicing, and we can't forget that, of course, that everyone needs services.
City officials say Chicago has welcomed more than 8,000 asylum seekers since August. The city receiving only $5.5 million from FEMA to address the issue last year. No money has been released so far this year, and the city's budget director says what's projected to come still won't be enough.
The city has been requesting financial assistance since the beginning of this mission, and to date has not received the level of funding that is needed to address this emergency.
It is bigger than us. It is a national problem that has to be addressed on the federal level, and so we can't do this all by ourselves.
And they are anticipating that more people will be arriving in the coming weeks. The pandemic-era immigration restrictions, known as Title 42, are set to expire on May 11th.
It's going to be a story we're going to be covering for a long, long time. Okay.
Yeah, it is, unfortunately. Because nobody wants to do what needs to be done here.
Yeah, and that's a major issue, challenge that Lightfoot grossly mismanaged, as she did so many other things that Mayor-elect Johnson's going to have to take on.
Yeah, and he's going to have to really open the books up on the TIF slush fund and see what's in there and what we really can do for this city. Because every time they say they want to do all this stuff, they cry poor, when we know the city isn't really broke. It's just, it's throwing money at certain priorities that shouldn't be priorities, and then they're hoarding the rest.
Yep.
For what we don't know.
That's what I wonder, man. It's like, so here's another thought, Ed. Are they hoarding the rest? Is the money really there? I wonder if like the money's been dispersed elsewhere to pad other people's pockets.
It's my understanding they were able to track where all the money for each of the TIF districts is, or at least how much money is in those and what they're earmarked for. But the question is, are they going to use it for that, or are they just basically just hoarding funds that are not going to be used, where they could be partially refunded to the citizens who are way overtaxed?
Right.
Or they could be used for necessary services right now, like helping the homeless and helping migrants and fixing potholes and any number of other things that the city needs right now that maybe they can afford but are choosing not to prioritize for who knows what reason. And yes, there is a federal government component to this where they have dropped the ball immensely. And we know that because every time I see them tout this great infrastructure bill that they passed or whatever, it's laughably low in the amount of money that they're actually providing to the states to do what needs to be done for infrastructure and everything else.
Yep. Can't add more to that. We covered it pretty well. All right, going into our next story.
Jimmy, you can wake up now if you were napping. We got to your story.
Got to your story, and Warren's too. I think Warren was part of that thread.
It was Warren. Oh, Warren was on top. Yeah, okay. This is,
I think Warren. And I'm waiting a moment to load the page.
There's a video. Oh, is there a video on this thing?
I'm not sure if there's. You know what? Why don't you load the page on your end, because I'm having difficulties with.
Yeah, let me see if I can figure out if this is a video that's actually relevant.
I don't know if it's a video or just photographs.
Oh, yeah. There's a video.
It does have video with it. Okay, everybody.
Okay. Oh, it looks like we got the ghost of Carl Kolchak here, and someday he'll remember how to use the ethereal powers to turn his microphone on.
Mr. Heller, we will. So, yes, I felt it was appropriate for Carl Kolchak to come in this investigative story, which just chills you to, it's a spine-chilling story, Mr. Heller. And of course, it's not reported by a Chicago media outlet. It's reported by an outlet at CBS Austin. This is who's reporting this. So let's get into it. There is a potential serial killer. I'm just doing my own voice, but in tribute to Darren McGavin, Carl Kolchak, I've got on his signature investigative reporter straw hat. All right. There's a serial killer on the loose in Chicago. This is being reported by CBS Austin. Have you seen this reported by any of the stations here in Chicago, Ed?
No, they don't want to talk about that.
No. Well, specifically, yeah, and we'll unwrap that too. Why the possibilities why.
Oh, yeah.
There's a potential serial killer on the loose in Chicago. The bodies of at least 11 young men have been recently pulled out of Lake Michigan. Karen Conte, a trial attorney who represented notorious serial killer John Wayne Gacy in his death row appeals, said police aren't saying much. Nobody's talking about it, but it's an astounding amount of men, and it could be as many as 15 men in a period of just over a year, Conte said Thursday morning during an interview with the National Desk's Jeff Coat. Conte said the cases are similar, as the men are all in their early 20s to 30s. She said they disappear after a night of drinking in Chicago. Days later, they're found in either the lake or the river. And this is now being tied to what they call the smiley face killers. And I urge your viewers to Google that. There's somewhere between 45 and 200 young men who've disappeared all over the country in the same exact way. And they're saying that there's a possibility that there is a killer or group of killers who are doing this in a ritualistic fashion. We don't know those facts yet, but it's something we really need to watch. Now, there's an interview. How long is it?
4 minutes and 48 seconds.
Let's run it.
Okay.
Elements in the manslaughter trial against Alec Baldwin, the proposed airline passenger bill of rights, and a possible serial killer in Chicago that no one's talking about. Joining us right now, trial attorney Karen Cotti. Good morning, Karen. Thanks for joining us this morning. I want to start with Alec Baldwin. He is charged with involuntary manslaughter.
I
for shooting
see.
death of
We don't
cinematographer
care
David
about
Baldwin.
Alec Baldwin. Okay, hold on a second. Let's see.
It's a whole news roundup.
All right, so maybe, okay, you can shut up about flight rights. No, come on, get to the story. Here we go. Let me back that up.
Okay.
It's probably around here.
Now, before you run it, the reason I decided to pay tribute to investigative reporter Carl Kolchak, who nobody ever believed, there's an element to this story that there's a TikTok sleuth who uncovered a lot of this, and we're going to go into that part of the story after we hear this. But hats off to independent investigative reporters who don't let the authorities stop them in their pursuit of uncovering the facts and the potential truth. All right, let's run the article or the video.
One thing that I noticed, at least 11 young men in Chicago have been pulled out of Lake Michigan after a night socializing at bars. And you've been looking at this issue because you think this could be the work of a serial killer. You've represented one of the most notorious serial killers in history, John Wayne Gacy, in his death row appeals. What are the facts and what are authorities saying?
You know, the authorities aren't saying much of anything. And I don't think the media in Chicago has even really connected these things because nobody's talking about it. But it's the astounding amount of men. And it could be as many as 15 men in a period of just over a year. And they're all very similar. They're in their early 20s to 30s. They're college age or in college. They disappear after a night of drinking in a nice area in Chicago. And days later, they're found in either the lake or the river. And this is now being tied to what they call the smiley face killers. And I urge your viewers to Google that. And that's somewhere between 45 and 200 young men who have disappeared all over the country in the same exact way. And they're saying that there's a possibility that there is a killer or a group of killers who are doing this in a ritualistic fashion. We don't know those facts yet, but it's something we really need to watch.
Very intriguing. All right, Karen Conti, always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, well, that's all there is to their reporting on that.
So here is the independent and investigative reporter, TikTok reporters, that angle to the story. And this comes from Yahoo. This TikTok sleuth believes a string of mysterious Chicago deaths are connected. Police disagree. It's tough imitating Darren McGavin. He had such a very, very specific cadence of voice when he played his character. So I'll just read my voice. All right. As much as I love Darren McGavin. All right. This TikTok sleuth believes a string of mysterious Chicago deaths are connected. Police disagree. A conspiracy theory spiraling on social media suggests a recent string of deaths in Chicago may be connected by something more sinister than coincidence, despite police insisting it's not the case. Over the last few months, multiple men have been found dead in bodies of water surrounding Chicago, including the Diversey Harbor, the Chicago River, and Lake Michigan. The deaths have few things in common. Most of the men were in their 20s or 30s, as previously aforementioned, night of drinking. Ken Walks, a TikToker who makes videos about business news and more recently crime, has dedicated multiple posts to his belief that men in Chicago are being targeted by a group of people. Mr. Walks made a video in early March. By the way, do you have the link to this on your end? Maybe we can run some of his videos.
Oh, the TikTok? Yeah, I'm getting that up.
All right, I'll continue reading. You can just signal me when you've got a video to share. Mr. Walks made a video in early March saying he had been offered a ride by a stranger in an unmarked vehicle while walking around Chicago at night multiple times. Do not take free rides from strangers, Mr. Walks said. People are going missing. I think this is some kind of connection. In another video, Mr. Walks claimed he knew how the men were going missing and how they were connected, saying the similarities in the cases indicate the men are being drugged at bars they attend. They offered a ride like Mr. Walks was and eventually killed. This has got Jeffrey Dahmer undertones because he would drug his victims. He'd lure them home and then he'd drug them. I think there were some instances where Dahmer may have drugged some of his victims at the pickup bars that he met them at. Mr. Walks.
And honestly, I don't know if this is a recent thing, but I've had friends tell me that they've had nights out of drinking out over the decades where they were super thankful that they made it home because they felt like somebody had roofied their drink, and some people like tried to like get them into a car or into a van or something. And I'm like, man, you're lucky to be alive right now.
Yeah.
I got a video ready if you want to see one of them.
All right, well, let's run the first video, then I'll read another paragraph and we'll watch the second one. So is this the first? So in this article, it's in the paragraph, Mr. Walks made a video. That's the first one. Is that the one? The link?
I got one that says he made a map of missing persons.
All right, so hang on.
That might be the.
In that article, the one I'm reading
down.
In the article, in the article itself. The first paragraph, a conspiracy theory. The second paragraph, over the last few months. The third paragraph, the deaths have a few things in common. The fourth paragraph, Ken Watts, a TikToker. It's in the fifth paragraph that starts, Mr. Walks made a video in early March saying he'd been offered a ride by a stranger. The word video has a link there. And I believe that's the first video I want to look at.
Okay, I got that.
Thank you, sir.
If you are walking home alone by yourself at night in Chicago and a car rolls up and rolls down the window and someone inside the car, unmarked car, beater of a car, asks if you need a ride, do not get in that car. This has now happened to me twice in the last 6 weeks that I can think of. The first time was about 3:30 in the morning and I was walking home from a bar. I don't drink, but I was walking home and a car with a woman rolls down the window and was like, hey, do you need a ride home? And I'm like, no, I'm good. Oh, you sure? Like, it was a beater of a car.
Did he say it was a woman?
People are going missing. And it just
say what?
Did he say it was a woman or a man in the car?
I think he had. Let me back it up. I believe he said there was a woman involved.
Okay.
Car with a woman rolls down the window and was like, hey, do you need a ride home? And I'm like, no, I'm good. Oh, you sure? Like, it was a beater of a car. Beater. People are getting kidnapped. People are going missing. And it just happened to me again. It just happened to me again at 9:45 at night in River North. I'm walking down, I don't know, like Superior or Ohio Street, and it's well lit. You know, I'm on the phone, and a car comes across 3 lanes of traffic, pulls up, rolls down the window, and asks me if I need a ride. Do not get in cars with people that you do not know. Do not get in unmarked cars. Do not take free rides from strangers. Like, people are going missing. Like, I think this is some kind of connection because, like, they're probably just waiting for people who are drunk, and it's an easy target. Like, holy shit, stay safe. Like, do not do it.
Yeah.
Now the second video where he shares more is in the seventh paragraph, and there's the sentence in another video. Another video has a video link.
Okay. Switch over to that one.
Related in a way. All the men go missing after leaving bars, usually in the River North.
I know how they're going missing. I know how they're all connected and why they are all in the same age range and demographic. I know why the cops and the media are not doing anything or covering it, and I know what we can do about it. So buckle up. They all go missing after leaving a bar, club, or a party drunk by themselves at night, and they're walking home. Twice in the last 2 months, I've had cars roll up on me and offer me a ride. I have not accepted those rides. Both times those drivers were alone, 2 different drivers, by the way, and both times immediately after I declined it, they sped off. One time, there was an additional truck that followed the car that sped off. How are they connected and why are they all guys? They're drunk dudes. A girl knows better than to ever get in a car with a stranger. These guys think potentially that they could take the person that's offering them the ride because the drivers themselves do not actually seem threatening. That leads me to something else, which is I know how they're potentially drugging the people that get into the car. One of the tox reports came back with one of the people showing a drug called GHB, which is given to, I think, pregnant women, but when mixed with alcohol produces effect identical to being roofied. So what do you think if someone was already drunk enough to get into a car with a stranger? Because definitely could happen. Definitely a guy would be willing to potentially do that, thinking that they were safe or whatever. They accept a bottle of water, potentially, from that's laced or has been inserted with GHB, and then they have this roofie effect. And if that's not the case, there's that truck that's following them. So the car that picked you up pulls over, the truck is full of people to do a swap. and take you. The reason the cops aren't doing anything is it's because it's not illegal for somebody to offer you a ride. Something has to happen before the cops can actually go do something. And because there's not foul play suspected, I talked to my friend who's a cop for an hour today. And the reason that foul play isn't suspected is because, I hate to say it, but there has been a long history of people who get drunk and fall in the river. They have video of people, I'm not sure any of these people.
Yeah, and what he's talking about is what our friend Lainey Peterson has told us about. That for some reason, when people get drunk, they're often drawn to water. I don't know where the science is on that, but apparently it's a thing.
Following down to the river and falling in, and because they're drunk, they're in such a shock state that sadly they pass away. Is it related? I don't know. We're talking now about probability versus possibility. Is it possible? Yes, it's possible. Is it probable? My friend who's a cop says it's less probable. The reason the media hasn't been talking about this yet, they will be this week, is because until the other day, when that car rolled up on me a second time, and it was the same car, by the way, same car, I'll put it in the comment. They did not know how these things were connected, and so they cannot run with it as a story. That is now going to change. What we can do about it is raise hell and make noise. All the people in my last video who said that this has happened to them in the past couple of weeks, please come with me to the CAPS meeting that's happening at the Larrabee station on Thursday from 5 to 6 p.m.
Well, that was last month.
Please contact me, email me, whatever. We will
Still haven't heard anything about it.
Stay safe. Stay alert. Do not get in a stranger's car under any circumstance. Please make sure that you are going home in a car that you know the correct license plate number for, please. Or please be traveling in a group if you are walking anywhere at night by yourself. The last time they rolled up on me was
another minute on this one.
They're getting brazen with this. I forgot to mention that I have officially filed a police report for a non-violent incident, and the news will be picking this story up, I believe, on Monday. I have been in contact with Fox. I've been in contact with CNBC. If
Pause
there's
it for
any
a second.
journalists or any reporters,
Not in Chicago. I mean, CBS
maybe
Austin. National's been good, but I wonder how many other people may have showed up to that CAPS meeting that if he was able to find other people that had a similar experience that didn't get in the car to at least establish a pattern. The article on Yahoo goes on to say Mr. Walks said he contacted the Chicago Police Department and local news stations to encourage an investigation of his theory, but his efforts were fruitless. In a video, Mr. Walks said he attempted to attend a Chicago Police Department community policing meeting, but was refused entry at first, then denied any opportunity to speak. The Independent has reached out to the Chicago Police Department for comment. In a statement given to NBC5 Chicago in March, a spokesperson for the Chicago Police Department said, at this time, there's no evidence suggesting there's a connection between these drowning deaths. The Chicago Police Department conducts thorough death investigations. Let me rephrase that. The Chicago Police Department conducts thorough death investigations as we work to bring a measure of closure to this the families of these and all victims they had. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe
they do.
Because otherwise, why would Brandon Johnson be calling for 200 more detectives?
Well, here's another point, Ed. Do you know how many unsolved investigations there are related to young women of color being murdered across the city? That's an epidemic as well. There's an epidemic of young Black women, not only in Chicago, but nationwide. Those murders, it's never prioritized to solve those. So when the Chicago Police Department claims that it conducts thorough death investigations as they work to bring a measure of closure to the families of these and all victims, that's left for debate. Now, as it relates to these men, I mean, it shouldn't matter, young men, young women, what color you are. Yeah, to Brandon Johnson's statement, he's going to bring more detectives to the job. It's probably because there isn't as thorough an effort as the CPD claims. Mr. Walks is accusing the police and local news stations of not picking up the story because there's not enough evidence to assume the deaths are connected or a group is targeting.
Yeah, and of course the news stations aren't going to cover it because it's not a cow running across the neighborhood, but
right?
Chasing after it.
Yep, it's not sexy enough yet. It's not bloody enough. Mr. Walks' videos have received millions of views and amassed thousands of comments from people who are concerned about the issue. If the police and the news aren't going to do anything to increase public safety about this and raise awareness, I'm going to do it myself, Mr. Walks said in a video. So somebody in the Yahoo chat who goes by the profile name Joe CHGO, Joe Chicago. I've said all along this seems to have a serial killer vibe to it. Don't lecture me on the kids being drunk. Now, to his points that it's like there's a car and then it's followed by a truck, and there's women driving the cars, rolling down the windows to give a sense of security to young men. What is this? Is this like Satan worshipers, like kidnapping?
It's like one of those Rob Zombie movies. What's the one I'm thinking of?
When we say serial killer is usually one person, this seems to be like a concentrated effort amongst a group. And then what are they gaining by drowning people? I mean, one of my things that I thought about is he was talking about the fact that a truck is following where there might be more people in. Well, we always hear about victims who are kidnapped and left, for dead for organ harvesting. But these people who are washing up on shore, it just looks like they're drowning. So I guess what it comes to for me, Ed, is like, what's the motive? For one serial killer, or in this case, by what he's saying, a group of people, a serial killer group, club. Why would they grab people, drug them, and then just go throw them in the river when there's no other evidence beyond it looking like they've been drowned?
Jerry, this is why Arkham Asylum exists. It's the literal definition of criminally insane.
Yeah.
So they want to. I mean, this is a rush for somebody.
Could be, yeah. Could
and
be
whether it's a group rush where it's a small group of people, collaborating in this, or whether maybe one mastermind is paying a bunch of people to look the other way, or do things. When you have a lousy economy and people need an extra buck, they might do things they wouldn't normally otherwise do. So maybe they're paying some chick to drive around the city and ask people if they need a ride.
Well, that's the troubling part of it to me also, Ed, is that, yeah, there are certainly sociopathic women, but then when you hear that it's like, specifically, there are women driving these cars. Okay, so what? Maybe it's a group of women who are getting off on like killing men. I don't want to like suggest some like agenda there, but that's the curious thing, because you don't generally hear in criminal cases like this, or in criminal cases that involve women, to my point of reference, it's not usually planned or calculated as this stuff seems to be from what his account is. So I don't know, man. I mean, it's going to be something to keep an eye on. But the fact that local media has not paid attention to it, and that we heard about it by way of Jimmy and Warren, I think also chimed in, and that we're seeing CBS Austin reporting on this, because apparently he did reach out and get some attention from national news organizations. Why aren't they paying attention to it here in Chicago? Or, now here's the other flip side of that, because we've talked about this before, when the police claim that they don't see anything that we normally call hinky. Maybe they actually are investigating it and they're onto something, but they don't want to tip their hand to the perps.
Yeah, there was a video that he had posted, which kind of felt like that was kind of what was happening when he found out that what he was uncovering was actually had a name. The smiley face.
Smiley face. So I didn't go that far to look that up. Let's look that up and find out what that's all about.
Anyway, so we got I don't know, should we watch his latest video?
Yeah, I didn't realize there was one. Go ahead.
I think, is this the one? Yeah, this is the one. Let me switch to this one. And this is from, is there a date on this? I don't see a posting date on this, but I think this is the latest one here. He says he's made a map of the Chicago missing persons, and it says I have over 10 while the news had 4.
Friday nights me personally, I love staying in.
that would also speak to, if there is a thorough investigation on this, they don't want to tip off the killers if this is a group of killers, to knowing that they know that they did more.
Yeah, I mean, there could be a reason to it. I mean, other than covering their own asses.
I don't work in fact-checking mainstream media. The news. Viral media posts spark speculation about string of drownings in Chicago being related. Hey, that's me, just at me. But authorities say no. They were kind enough to provide this super helpful map of where some of these people were found to prove it. But I just built my own map with the information that I was able to find, and mine looks a little...
I don't know why it stopped. Ooh, that's weird. The video just stopped.
And it won't, you can't push play again to continue it?
Hang on a sec. We're buffering on TikTok. I wonder what's going on here.
Huh.
Wow. All right, let me see if I can reload the page and see if I can get it to play. All right.
Now, I'm not seeing anything with smiley face people, but I put in the extra word smiley face people killers.
I don't know what you like doing on Friday nights. Me personally, I love staying.
Go ahead, Jerry.
So they're calling it the smiley face killer. Go ahead and play him. I'm waiting for the Wikipedia page to load.
Okay.
And doing a little bit of laundry, getting ahead on work, and fact-checking mainstream media. The news. Viral media posts spark speculation about string of drownings in Chicago being related. Hey, that's me, just at me. But authorities say no. They were kind enough to provide this super helpful map of where some of these people were found to prove it. But I just built my own map with the information that I was able to find, and mine looks a little bit different. Their map has the location of 4 different people. Mine has 13. Theirs only showed where they were found. Mine has missing, found, missing, heading to, left, heard from. These are time-stamped. Yeah, this is a little more insightful, I think, than what they were doing. Anyone can access this map. It's in my beacons. Go get it. For obvious reasons, it is not editable, but if you have any additional information or any other points that I do not have here, please let me know. I know that lately most of my videos have been about this exact issue because to me, it's such a huge issue. And if the police and the news aren't going to do anything to increase public safety about this and raise awareness, I'm going to do it myself because at the end of the day, we are all just walking each other home. But there's been a lot of really cool things happening in my life that I'm going to share. If you didn't know, I'm the co-founder and the chief marketing officer of a travel tech, fintech startup called Foresight. And today I closed our first preferred partner. And this opens the door to so much more. We're going to start partnering with hotels and resorts around the world and make them preferred partners for our users. I also got an exceeds expectations on my annual review for my corporate job. So yeah, there's been a lot going on and I haven't really been myself and I'm finally feeling like myself again. So I'm excited to get back to the content that I think most of you follow me for.
Good for him.
If you follow me for the Chicago crime related content, like I said, that map is available and accessible. So I hope you have a great night.
All right, so I've got something from Newsweek I'll read from that was reported in February 9th of 2023 regarding this smiley face killer reference. In 1997, 2 retired New York City detectives, Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte, and criminal justice professor and gang expert Lee Gilberton advanced the smiley face murder theory. This came after 3 college-aged men were found dead in city rivers around the same time. They believe that a string of young men found dead in bodies of water across several Midwestern states from the late 1990s to the 2010s was the work of a serial killer or group of serial killers. In most cases, the official cause of death is listed as an accidental drowning. The detectives have investigated the deaths of at least 45 college-age men who were found dead in the water in 11 states in the early 2000s. As of now, Gannon told Newsweek that there are 681 cases in their database that they suspect may be connected. Gannon told CNN in 2008 that he believed the men were drugged and abducted from bars, held and possibly mentally or physically abused before being killed. Duarte said all of the young men were popular, athletic, and good students who they believe were targeted. While he hasn't looked much into the recent bodies discovered in Chicago, Gannon says he believes they are connected. The fact that you have so many of them in such a short period of time, I have to say that I would say they are connected. He said the group is becoming more brazen, because they know they can do whatever they want. Of course, they're picking it up, and why wouldn't they? There's no consequence to what they're doing. Why call them the smiley face murders? The name smiley face comes from graffiti depicting a smiley face along with 13 other distinct symbols found near the locations where they believe the killers dumped the bodies. The group is actually leaving symbols behind, letting you know, yes, this was us, come and catch us, he said, adding that each city has their own symbols. Law enforcement investigators and other experts, however, are skeptical. Is there a smiley face killer? In 2008, the FBI debunked this theory after receiving information about young college-age men who were found deceased in the rivers in the Midwest. The FBI has reviewed the information about the victims provided by 2 retired police detectives and interviewed an individual who provided information to the detectives. Supervisory Agent, Special Agent Richard J. Colco said in a statement at the time, "To date, we have not developed any evidence to support links between these tragic deaths or any evidence substantiating the theory that these deaths are the work of serial killers or killers." He added the majority of these incidents appear to be alcohol-related drownings. But here's the thing that strikes me, Ed. Nowhere in any of the reports regarding these men who've been found drowned reference any kind of a graffiti symbol near where they find the bodies.
That doesn't mean there wasn't one.
Right. So that means there wasn't. That means that either it's not being reported as not to tip off the fact maybe the police are onto something, or they're either negligent and not, finding anything. Very, very curious. Since 2008, Gannon, Duarte, and Gilbertson said they've argued that these deaths are instead the work of a multi-state gang of killers. Gannon said this is a well-structured, organized group with cells in major cities around the United States. He said each city could have between 8 to 20 members. The motive of the group remains unknown, he said, adding that these cases are gang-oriented, adding that the group chooses a narrow, specific group to target. There's a ritualistic aspect to these killings, he told Newsweek. There's an element of hate. They are equal opportunity killers, and they hate almost anybody. Gannon said the autopsies could be key to understanding whether these deaths were accidents or homicides. In his experience, Gannon said there are some victims being pulled from waterways that were not very drunk and did not have water in their lungs, which would be expected in a drowning. He also said traces of GHB, known as the date rape drug, were found in some of the victims' bodies. Gannon said the odorless, tasteless drug could be slipped into a victim's drink when people are leaving the bar. The time of year these bodies are found has also been suspicious. He said many of these bodies were found in waterways during the winter. Most people don't go to the water there in winter months, he said. Chicago's an icebox. Okay, so happens in the winter. They find traces of a date rape drug in them, which would indicate, well, somebody gave that to them. They didn't just wander to the water and jump in the water and drown if they were just drunk.
Yeah.
There's an element of the fact that there isn't a pattern of who they're picking, although there has been a pattern with young men that they suspect have been mentally and physically tortured before being drowned, after being drugged. Motive, why the specific range of men is being targeted. It's weird, man. It's hinky.
Yeah, it is.
But the fact that the local news media hasn't picked up on this is even more hinky. Are they not reporting on it because the police are asking them not to, because maybe they're actually doing their jobs and are trying to figure this out? Or are they just going on the word of the police department that says, no, there's nothing to see here, and just ignoring the story?
It could be a number of things. I just did a quick search on DuckDuckGo, and I found a Fox 32 article from 2019 where some guy was one of the investigators was asking them to reopen the case. So like as if they stopped looking for them, and then they just started looking again. And then, of course, with the lockdown and everything else that was happening, they had to change their resources, and maybe they just weren't following up on the case. But we really don't know until until police start talking about what they're actually investigating regarding this thing now. And maybe we'll learn something
if they do without tipping off those they might be investigating.
Hanky. What does that mean, Vince? Hinky.
Oh, strange.
Weird. Why don't you say strange or weird? Or hinky, that has no meaning.
Always say hinky.
I don't want you guys using words around me that got no meaning.
On the case, Ed.
Yeah.
Samuel Gerard.
Yeah.
U.S. Marshal Samuel Gerard is played by Tommy Lee Jones. So Jimmy says it ends up being of an yeah. You know what, Jimmy? You actually said what I was thinking, but did not want to say because I was afraid it would be politically incorrect, or
an angry gang of man-hating lesbians,
or extreme feminists,
or Amazons.
Ed, in the worlds of Carl Kolchak, we may never know. All right. Enough of that. All right. Well, yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. I mean, we'll keep an eye and an ear to the ground on this. And Jimmy, thanks for sharing that. And Ed, thanks for putting it in the Slack notes too, so that we could talk about it and see what might transpire from this. Now, as we go ahead.
Yeah, I just thought it'd be interesting if we wanted to talk about it. I don't know how monetizing that subject is, but it's definitely a story worth covering because when the media does cover it, they spend 30 seconds on it and then hope that nobody sees it.
Yeah. And as you said, it's not like, a cow running down the street in Niles, right? It's got a video with it that's going to be funny and entertaining. Although, there's nothing wrong with stories like that. But there are people getting killed. But potentially, there might be serial killers on the loose. And when Jimmy shared this with us, I said, you know what I want to do, Ed? I want to get in my Jeep and put my leg on and go walk the streets and see if anybody wants to try something with me and carry my little mace gun and solve the case myself. But I just haven't made the time for it yet. So
yeah, and of course he's gonna have the cowl on while he's doing that, right?
Well, no, if I did that, it would give it away. But
okay. Well, here I am. Yeah, and I think it's all related to the breakdowns in infrastructure too. I'm wondering, if these bridge failures are also related to some of those issues that are happening in the city. Yeah, interesting you bring that up because now we're going into the end of the show, which is our Twitter roundup. It's just those little offbeat stories that we want to talk about, but they're brief, that we find on Twitter that are kind of interesting but might not take a lot of time because they come from Twitter. They're in our Twitter roundup. But was there video? I guess there was video to this. Yeah.
But was there audio to it?
I think so.
Well, I'll let you bring it up then. I didn't realize the video. But yeah, this is something interesting. Michigan Avenue Bridge railing broke during raising today for the sailboats. Aging infrastructures everywhere, not just under the bridges that we've shown that are rusting out. These are like historic, normally, to my understanding and observation, Ed, pretty well maintained bridges. But this is what we saw happen this week. Go ahead.
Yeah, that don't look right.
Are we set to go with the north?
I wouldn't even.
I'm turning the audio down a little bit.
I can't even imagine where you start trying to repair something like that, given the the logistics and the alignment issues and how everything.
I mean, all it takes is just one little thing to just be slightly off, and then it will catch. And it's like this whole thing is bent, right?
Yeah.
Like, I guess Lori just put the bridges up one too many times.
But you know what, Ed? NASCAR's coming, and you know how what a great impact that's going to have on the infrastructure around Millennium Park, right, and Lakeshore Drive.
I wonder if the cars are going to be going over any of the bridges. I gotta get a closer look at that map. Probably not. But
whose cousin did this job? By the way, Jimmy, well, thanks for sharing it, and because it's got a local slant, it was definitely worth talking about. So our last item from the Twitter roundup, we all saw absolutely heartbreaking sellout Bernie Sanders step forward to endorse Alzheimer's Joe this week, right? I got emails from Barack Obama about his friend Joe, to which I actually responded to Obama on Twitter. I'm like, you're an absolute monster for endorsing this guy who's got one foot in the grave. Shame on you. And I feel no hesitation in addressing Barack Obama on social media like he reads my stuff. But seriously, Barack Obama, who made that phone call, as you mentioned earlier in the show, to subvert Bernie Sanders' ascendancy. Now Bernie Sanders is Bernie Cuck Sanders is just rolling over even more in endorsing Biden. And if Sanders is endorsing Biden, Ed, that means that Sanders doesn't want to see primaries, because the Democratic Party has already alluded to the fact that they're not holding the primary. Why? Because they can't pump enough horse tranquilizers into Joe Biden for him to successfully navigate another debate at his age.
Yeah, they don't want to have debate. They have no plans to have debates, even though RFK would wipe the floor with him, even with his speech difficulties.
Yeah.
I mean, well, Joe has his own speech difficulties, but I mean,
Joe's speech difficulties are more cognitive than RFK's speech.
That's true.
So I've always noticed that and never really looked it up. But is RFK's speech issues from an illness that he had, or what?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had brought it up previously and forgot what it was. There was an issue that had damaged his speech, and I think there were some medications that have improved it greatly. Since he started being afflicted by it. I don't remember the name of the thing, but it's unfortunately, it's not something that can be easily repaired. And once you start having those types of tremors in your voice.
And as much as it shouldn't be, unfortunately, I sense it will be a distraction.
A little bit.
Candidacy. It shouldn't be. You got to listen to what somebody's saying, not how they're saying it. If they have any kind of, issues with their speech, because you can clearly understand what he's saying. But I've also seen some allusions on social media that from, I think, one of the right-wing Baldwin brothers, that he was talking about the fact that there's going to be some truth coming out regarding RFK, I think abusing his wife or something. I don't know. Oh, speaking of wife abuse, before we get into this Twitter roundup, well, I also saw this on Twitter. How about what's his name? Now I'm forgetting his name though. The conservative Crowder, Stephen Crowder. You saw what happened with him, didn't you?
No, I don't follow him.
You didn't see this? Well, I don't follow him, but it's all over social media. So, right-wing conservative blowhole Stephen Crowder, who routinely goes around college campuses with his little table, doing a segment called Prove Me Wrong, or I forgot what the name of it was.
Oh, is that where that meme came from?
Yeah, Prove Me Wrong, right. So video got leaked of him gaslighting and verbally abusing his wife, who fled while she was pregnant. Apparently, she during her pregnancy while he's sitting on the patio smoking his cigar, he's berating her because she didn't put on gloves during her pregnancy with twins to give their dog some medication that is actually dangerous to pregnant women, whether they're wearing gloves or not. And to the degree that this guy berates his pregnant wife, look, I knew he was a piece of shit before this happened, okay? Because we're talking about social media, and I did see it on Twitter. This guy Crowder, the amount of men on social media who are defending and making excuses for him it's like they're self-tattling on themselves that they're as big misogynistic, disrespectful, gaslighting, narcissistic, sociopathic pieces of shit as he is. It's just like, my God, I'm shocked at how many men are like, well, he's really not being that bad on her. It's like, really? If you don't think he's being bad on his wife and you think it's acceptable to talk to anybody that way, not just your wife who's carrying your twins, I hope if any of these men on social media condoning his behavior, if they have wives or significant others, that their wives and significant others are running for the fucking hills. Because this is textbook abusive, gaslighting behavior to the degree where you almost are waiting for his verbal berating of his wife to turn into him smacking her. Now, this is a guy who routinely tells women, who was routinely a proponent, an anti-choice proponent, right? You know, you can't have abortions, right? A woman has no right to have an abortion. Apparently, Crowder, after his wife ran off to seek her divorce, was questioning why the law would allow a man not to have the right to dictate whether or not his wife can get a divorce or not. And in the video where he's berating her, it's over a matter of the fact they've got one car in the family, right? And he's telling her to go to the store. And someone on social media said, wow, why don't they have two cars? And I'm like, well, why do you think? Because he wants to control if and when she can come and go from the home. Because he sees his wife as his property. It's clearly, by the way he's talking to her and berating her and his view on other things, that's come out on social media. Anyway, it's a real schadenfreude moment as far as people seeing what this piece of shit is really about. And I guess his wife's family, now that she's fled and is seeking the divorce, leaked this to basically show this is what she's up against. I mean, abuse probably on the level of what we saw or heard with O.J. Simpson.
So, in a nutshell, piece of shit is outed as being a piece of shit.
Yeah, and Jimmy, you're right. He's a religious version of Andrew. Yeah, Andrew Tate's another one.
I don't know who Andrew Tate is either. I'm like, okay, maybe I am curating my Twitter properly if I don't know who either of these pieces of shit are. No, you're not. Andrew Tate is the very misogynistic, alpha male, toxic piece of shit who was caught in Romania. He was in Romania, and the Romanian government police apparently figured out he was running a sex trafficking operation in Romania. And this is like one of the conservative darlings, on social media. Yeah, Jimmy, that's what I'm saying. It's I'm like I've spent more than a decade on social media, basically curating who I'm following on Twitter so that I get a decent feed with content that I feel is worthwhile seeing. And if neither of those pieces of crap are in my timeline, then that's a good thing.
But the thing is, Ed, I don't follow Crowder or Tate. People are retweeting what's just happened.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, inevitably, you're going to see retweets of some of these people. So you get glimpses of these things from time to time. But neither of those guys is on my radar on a regular basis, which is good because then they're not going to stick in my Swiss cheese brain hole.
I used to routinely argue with a former friend. She loved Crowder. She loved him, but then she also loved Trump, and she was a real MAGA head. Sometimes we look past things like that with people that we care about. But she would routinely defend Crowder, right? And we would actively debate videos that he would do where he's clearly just this bullying, not just to women, but just in general, has a very, very bullying mindset. And she would constantly defend him. And now I'm like, Jesus, I'm wondering if, to Jimmy's point here, Crowder verbally abusing his wife is familiar to a lot of survivors. Abusers are freely expressing how crappy they are. My friend, a woman who used to routinely excuse and condone him, I just wonder if she was used to that kind of abuse in her life that she thought that's normal male behavior, which it's not. it's not normal behavior for any gender, color or otherwise. So Jimmy says, I told my girls before they date a boy, ask them what their views are on Andrew. Yeah, right. Seriously. It's a good safety tip. Anyway, so as we decided to dive into social media, here's our last of our Twitter roundup past that rabbit hole regarding Bernie Sanders announcing his endorsement of Joe Biden. Now, Bernie Sanders had also endorsed Jamal Green, who ran for mayor here in Chicago. So Jamal Green decided to express his disappointment regarding Sanders endorsing Biden. And Jamal Green remarked, it's sad. To Farouk Shamsi's comment, Bernie Sanders endorses Biden. His decision suggests that the progressive wing of the Democratic Party will ultimately unify behind Biden, to which Jamal Green, comments sad, to which Chicago Numtot remarks, yeah, it is really sad when a progressive endorses a centrist moderate Democrat, as Jamal Green did with Palos Paul.
The fact that he doesn't even see.
Right? This is
amazing.
The lack of self-awareness by someone who I'm starting to speculate might have some serious, like, what do they call them?
There's some kind of narcissistic personality disorder thing going on here.
Right, but there was a word to go with the narcissistic personality disorder.
Hubris?
No, not the hubris. No. The destructive narcissistic personality disorder. Oh. Yeah, but someone destructive in the sense that, like, the word was malignant narcissistic personality disorder. Malignant was the word I was looking for. A narcissist who doesn't realize they're a narcissist and their narcissistic behavior is malignant in a way that not only do they not have the self-awareness, but the way they display their narcissistic personality disorder is actually malignant to other people. So anyway, so Chicago Numb, same thread, said, or worse yet, a candidate endorsed by all the right-wing groups in Illinois. Not that you'd know anything about that. Bike Slutty remarks, how is he so unself-aware? I don't know. It's just been a big disappointment to all of us, though.
Yeah.
So last story of the night, as we approach the 11 o'clock hour here in Chicago, is...
Oh, we're after 11, Jerry.
Oh, yeah, we're after... You're right. We're after 11.
It's not, but funny enough, this is not the longest show that we've done.
No, we did one 4 hours last week. We had so much to talk about.
We were approaching 5, I thought, on one of them.
And I hope it's not rambling. I mean, I hope we're moving things along. We did cover.
No, it's just we keep cramming our shows chock full of stories and entertainment for you.
Yeah,
and sometimes we have a little more to say than we originally planned.
In regards to Jamal, it's his evil tween Lamage up to his old tricks.
Lamage.
And also, Where Pilgrim says, is he serious? The irony is thick. LOL.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, I just saw Jimmy's other comment regarding the toxic males. Wow. Okay. Sorry. You know what, Jimmy?
Come on. I like both tank tops and animal prints.
I do too. In fact, my friend I was referring to, she wore an animal print really nice. Really.
Yeah, and then when they got the animal print tank tops, oh boy.
It's even better. That's a party. All right.
Jimmy wants us to keep the stream going on forever. So
Art says we need a pop culture segment to our show, then we'll run over 6 hours. You know what it is, though, to Art, the fact that we're only on twice a week, as opposed to other shows that are on every night of the week for an hour. We're basically like making up for the fact we're not on every day with all the content.
Yeah, so it's like, we're filling in like a couple days worth of news of the stories that we're able to keep our eyes on, and then we're covering it on Tuesdays and Fridays.
I love this. That you go, Jimmy. That's the way to knock it back to him. Send him a message. The first year away from him, I let my daughter wear animal prints for school pictures. That's great. All right. So last story, which I saw, Ed, and I thought, maybe we need to broaden our horizons if somebody's paying.
Yeah. Now, just to be clear, it's Block Club doing this, not us.
And by the way,
not yet.
To everybody that asks us, as much as we like doing within the realm of time that we have a little bit of investigating, we don't have a whole lot of time to devote to that during the week. Hey, man, if you want to investigate a story or cover stuff, Block Club Chicago's hiring, and they're paying for it. So if for those who are doing more investigations into things, we're hiring investigative reporters. Block Club Chicago is looking for reporters to join our new investigative team focused on stories from the city's diverse neighborhoods, especially and often underserved South and West Sides. Apply by May 19th. Successful candidates will join a team focused on rooting out corruption, wrongdoing, and inequality, building on Block Club's already impactful and award-winning investigative coverage, which in recent years revealed the West Side's Loretto Hospital vaccination scandal, sweeping racial inequities and traffic stops, and massive flaws in the COVID-19 testing industry. The skills, you're right for the job if you are deeply interested in and passionate about reporting and storytelling that reveals how Chicago really works, from its neighborhoods to City Hall and back again, with an emphasis on how residents and communities are impacted. You have at least 5 years of reporting experience that illustrates your passion for strong narrative storytelling in a way that connects serious issues and related data to people in the communities we cover. We're not serious enough, I think, to be able to be considered as
well, and also I don't think we quite have 5 years in yet.
We're about 3, and we're probably too irreverent for them. You have experience producing journalism that exposes and documents inequality, discrimination, and corruption. Well, I think we've done that. You have a working knowledge of Chicago's South and West Sides and their neighborhoods. I have some of that. This includes leaders at all levels, from elected officials to Block Club presidents to nosy neighbors who are at best experts about their own surroundings. Kathy?
Yeah, maybe Kathy would want to take him up on this.
You understand and embrace Block Club's mission of reporting based in the city's neighborhoods, and you're a collaborator who will work well with the investigative team and Block Club's broader cadre of neighborhood reporters who in many cases will bring ideas from their beats to develop into investigative pieces. You have experience acquiring public records, analyzing data sets, and verifying sources to deliver accurate, timely, and impactful investigations. In a competitive market, you also have a passion for keeping up to date with the latest trends in data collection and acquiring documents through the Freedom of Information Act, court systems, and other relevant resources. Now, you know what, Ed? Maybe we should. Maybe we should. See, the only reason I haven't been as embracing about all these things they list here that we would like and should be doing or should have been doing in the past for Chicago Corner, we were volunteering then, we're volunteering now. It's because it's a job. It really is a job to do these things. We're at 3.5 hours tonight. We were 2 hours Tuesday, not to mention prep time for each show. I would say this is more than a hobby. It's kind of a commitment, but it's not quite a job yet. Well, Block Club Chicago, commensurate salary based on experience range starts at $70,000.
Yeah, that's a good chunk of change right there.
Full benefits, medical, dental, and vision, 401k, unlimited paid vacation, plus paid holidays, paid sick and maternity leave, supportive, scrappy, tight-knit editorial staff. Requirements. The position is based in Chicago and requires the person to live in the Chicago area. This is a work-from-home office hybrid role. Ed, if my love wasn't directing and editing, and I was, because this requires a full-time commitment that I can't give it. But man, oh man, if I wasn't as dedicated and passionate about being a filmmaker and being a creative.
Look, any of you journalists out there, if you're looking for a sweet gig doing what you love to do with investigative journalism, this is a great opportunity here. You got a better than living wage there. You got benefits like medical, dental, and vision. Come on.
$70,000. That really puts things in perspective for the past 2.5 years of work we've been doing, doesn't it, Ed?
Yeah, this is, if I had the years of experience just doing reporting, I didn't have other things that I wanted to do, this would be a great opportunity for anyone interested in doing anything related to the media and investigative journalism, news, anything Chicago. This is a great opportunity. If you think you're qualified, go for it.
You know what I'm thinking, Ed? We have a staff meeting tomorrow with Kira at 11:30.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if this might not this position itself. I mean, obviously, I can't commit full time to like doing this, but I'm wondering after we talk amongst ourselves, if there's an opportunity to pitch Block Club Chicago on some kind of a, I don't know, partnership affiliation, because we love what they do. We're always using the work of their reporters that are out there doing really good work to do a commentary show. I mean, we're not journalists, we're not, but I mean, we open up the conversation. They report. We open up the conversation here with our live chat component, embracing what people in live chat have to say, what we want to share conversationally based on what they're out reporting. I wonder, and there probably isn't, but I wonder if there is an opportunity to pursue their legs, present to them, say, hey, we love what you guys do. We're not journalists, but we provide a platform of commentary for a lot of stuff that comes from Block Club Chicago as well as other newspapers. Is there some way we can figure out a way to I don't know, form some kind of an affiliation? Just something.
Yeah, it's something we'll have to add to our list of things to try and figure out here. I mean, I know Block Club already has partnerships with. I mean, they got a program. They work with other channels. I think they work with PBS. They work with some of the local news channels. So they have relationships with a number of people in media, and so I don't know if they're not opposed to the content that we provide. Maybe there is a future for us with Block Club,
or just or they do a show, a broadcast show. I think at WCIU, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, is that the channel they're on?
It might be
channel 26.
I think so. Art says Block Club should profile Chicago Corner. That'd be kind of fun. But I'm thinking about like an actual way that we can integrate what we're doing with the time we have here on YouTube twice a week.
Sure.
Figure out a way to like monetize that in partnership with them. They can monetize it. I don't know. Just
I have a feeling that we have to get a little more fortified in our operations first before we really do some heavy reaching out to Block Club. But
yeah, you're probably.
I think it could happen.
And you know how others can help us make that happen is to support us at patreon.com/Chicago Corner, or even more importantly, forget about supporting us financially with the $5 a month. Although your $5 a month support does give you an opportunity to co-host one show a month with us if you choose to want to come on and do commentary, bring your own story, or just talk about stories with us during a live stream. Just share, like, subscribe. I know all of you have. I'd be shocked if you hadn't, but what will really also help is talking us up to your friends. Hey, have you heard those guys over on Chicago Corner on YouTube? You should go check out their show. You'll really enjoy it, because that helps us too. Help us guerrilla market the program.
Yeah, they got a stream cat on there. He likes to make noise sometimes, and even walks in front of the camera. It's amazing. It's so entertaining when he does that. It's like he's like, dude, it's like, you're doing a show. I don't care. Pay attention to me because I am Oreo the Stream Cat, the star of the show.
He's the boss. You heard him there in the background?
Yeah, I heard him. I think everybody heard him.
Hey, baby.
The entire internet heard your cat.
Come here. What are you doing? Get over here. Get over here. We're going to say goodnight. You want to say goodnight?
He thought he was already. Didn't you hear him meowing?
What did you want?
I was telling you to get off the internet.
To play with me. All right, buddy. I'll be with you in a minute. All right, so that's our Friday night show, everybody. I thought we had a good show. Covered a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
that's a good show. Comments here?
Yeah, we did pretty well for two Norcos.
Yeah, we did. It did level me out a little bit based on I was doing so well pre-show, and I was even ahead of the curve. I had everything prepared. I was just doing the thumbnail. I got a phone call, and boom, off the cliff. And I'm like, I was so in the right vibe to do tonight's show calmly and peacefully. And I was taking the shower and shaving, and I'm just like, I gotta just like shake this off. How am I going to do it? I'm like, oh, wait. It's that emergency time. I've got those 2 Norcos because I'm in serious emotional pain right now. Anyway, won't go too much into that. But yeah, I'm glad that they helped. And I was calm. Thank you, Jimmy. It's good to see you. And Ware Pilgrim, thank you. Always appreciate seeing you here, and everybody else who tuned into the live chat tonight. We will be back again on Tuesday. Oh, Warren was watching too. He was very quiet though during the show. But Warren, we want to hear how the new job's going. I don't know if you've started it yet, but I know that took you off streaming for a while. So we hope that that's a better place for you with starting the new job.
Yeah, he's working at the East Coast Slice Folding and Condescension instructional facility there. I believe he's an instructor.
I see. Well, they're going to be very well served by his mentorship.
It's like, look, you gotta fold the slices like this, and you gotta be extremely surly when anyone else from another city talks about their style of pizza.
I got to ask you, Ed, to stop talking about pizza. Not because
I'm actually sad because I didn't have any today.
Oh my God. I've been really good following my nutrition plan this week, but every time I think of you in the show, I'm like, oh, he's going to bring up pizza. And the temptation is just too great. But
it's good for you.
No, it's not. It is good for you in moderation, but not. Look, you know what? I finally cracked the case of Jerry's inability to lose weight. It's carbs from breads, sugars in rice, sugars in bread.
Yeah.
And I don't eat a lot of it, but I eat enough of it that it's why I've plateaued and I can never lose. So once I read more about sugar, even in your drinks and stuff, whether it's Coke, and I don't drink a lot, but it's enough to prevent the efforts when you are eating well.
Yeah.
Actually take. So I got to be much more diligent, and I am about it.
Yeah, it is. It does get harder to be able to manage, even if you're watching your calorie intake, if you're eating all of the wrong types of carbs at the same time.
Yeah, it is the last temptation of Jerry. Definitely Ware Pilgrim. All right, Ed'll be driving the bus on Tuesday. Anything you want to leave our viewers with before we depart?
Let's see. What is Tuesday? That's May, isn't it? Yes.
Yes.
May 2nd. That's Tuesday. So we'll see you next month.
We're going into summer, guys. Get ready for it. All right, Ed. Thanks for co-hosting tonight. To everybody else out there in the live chat, thank you for joining us. We always welcome your participation, your comments, and your opinions during the show and our broadcast. As we go into the weekend, as always, please make sure you stay safe, watch out for each other, be vigilant, take care of each other. And until we meet next Tuesday, again, remember, if it's happening on the streets, you'll hear about it here on Chicago Corner. So please stay safe, Chicago, and we will see you when we return next week. Good night, everybody.
Get out and don't come back until you've redeemed yourselves.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.
The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent. If you would like to be a guest on Chicago Corner, please email our host, Jerry, at chicagocorner.tv.